Message is being broadcast by the Department of Defense of the Republic. At 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, multiple unidentified objects were confirmed to have entered Earth's atmosphere.
Discovery Houston, 20 seconds to LOS Kedron.
Contact, nice, clear in orbit. The first message that comes to you is you are a divine being. You matter. You count. You come from realms of unimaginable power and light, and you will return to those realms.
The vast stretches of the unknown and the unanswered and the unfinished still far outstrip our collective comprehension.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Broadcasting from Forest Tower Studios, all the way from the Deep South. Now, here is your host, Joe Root.
Broadcasting from the great American South, this is Lighting the Void. I'm your host, Joe Roop, and we are coming to you live from Forest Tower Studios, right here in the South. And this is Lighting the Void, your voice for verity in this crazy realm of polarity. It is Tuesday night, September 11th, as the moon begins its waxing into midnight. And make sure that if you want to call into the show, it's 1-800-588-0335. The website is lightingthevoid.com. The network is thefringe.fm. And this is a day to remember on the 9/11 anniversary here. So we are going to touch on that. But tonight, the subject is From Black to White Magic with Darren Taylor, also known as Asbjorn Torvol. And this is a subject that we do cover frequently on the show. Magic, occult magic, the reality of it. And we're going to get into that tonight with Darren. Tonight with Darren. And also, we're on TalkStream Live and tune in. Go check out our affiliates via the network. There is a call to listen line, 701-719-3971. If you want to call that number, that is just in case your internet goes down. It's a very reliable form of listening to the network. We also have the app and all that good stuff. So I try not to do too much promotion during the beginning of the show. People don't like long intros. I've been reading a lot of comments. The best place to read comments about yourself, if you ever want to find out what people really think about you, just put a bunch of stuff up on YouTube. And comes to find out, they really don't like super long intros and all the promos and stuff. But good grief, man. I got to tell you who we are and what this show's about, you know. So get off my case. Anyways, that's what we're going to talk about tonight. From black to white magic, the subject of magic, the reality of it. We're going to talk about this man's journey, what he has to offer us. I also want to say thank you to anybody who's donated to this show, supported the show, shared the content. All of you guys, thank you so much. I got my headphones in today off the wish list that Don got. Those brand spanking new Sony headphones that have been around since the 70s that radio hosts have been using forever, and they sound amazing. Thank you so much. So if you guys, if you want a good set of headphones to listen to anything, you get these Sony VR6s. They're great. They sound awesome. So thank you so much, Don. This show is also brought to you by Audible. Go to audibletrial.com/LTV radio. Get your free Audible trial. Grab a t-shirt. Use the Amazon portal. Share through social media. Do that, and I'll love you forever. Also, sign up to the newsletter. We're going to change up the download. So when you sign up to the newsletter, I've been giving you guys a free astrology book. But what I'm going to change up there is, and I'll give everybody that's on the list this book as well. But what I'm going to change up there is I'm going to give you a psychic self-defense PDF book for that. So when you sign up to the newsletter, you're going to get that book too. Tomorrow night, we're going to be speaking to Dr. Richard Spence. He wrote the book Aleister Crowley, Secret Agent 666. Thursday night, Amalia Eon Karras is going to be here with us. And then the next week, we got even bigger and better guests coming down the line. So we're trying to keep the upgrades going as we go along. It's kind of hard to upgrade from some of the guests that we've done. So I don't know. I think tonight's going to be an awesome night. You're going to love this. Now, just in case you don't know who this guy is, you've heard me talk about Presoteric Xavier quite a bit. And this is where I learned magic from my occult journey, was through this YouTube channel called Mind and Magic. This is when I started at the very beginning. And I was there when the guy only had a few hundred subscribers or whatever when he first started. And now he's up to like almost 45,000, I don't know, something like that, subscribers. And he's probably one of the best teachers on YouTube about occult magic. Okay. And the reason why I think you should understand the importance of occult magic is because in this day and age, there's a lot of talk about conspiracy. And conspiracy nuts like to shove down your throat that occultists are some of the worst people. They're the evil empire or whatever. You see all the lines drawn on the figures, and for the most part, a lot of people don't really understand the symbology that they're talking about. They make things up in their own head a lot of the times, but some of it's real too. But speaking of 9/11 and conspiracy and all of these things that we touch on, we need to understand the power of occult magic, symbology, and things of this nature, so we can learn what to be aware of, how to protect our psyches when it's being used against us. It's all about empowerment. It's not to make you some type of wizard that's going to go out and get anything and everything you want and screw the world. That's not what it's all about. It's about making you aware of this language that the universe seems to talk to us through, that only before now a few of us have been aware of. And now these magicians are coming online. They're all over the place. They're here for you to try to instruct you and help you learn these things. And so Darren Taylor stepped up to the plate. And the reason why I bring Presoteric Xavier's channel up is because this guy was one of the only people besides Uncle Birch that he entrusted to do a video on his channel. And when Uncle Birch said, hey, man, you need to talk to this guy, and so did Paul Francis Young from the Path of the Sun Keepers also told me, you need to talk to this guy. Well, I reached out to this guy, and now he's here. And Darren Taylor was formerly known, and I think a lot of people still know him as Asbjorn Torvol, and he's now working on his new business project, Presoteric, which aims to bridge the gap between science and magic, and that's wonderful. Now, Darren doesn't believe magic is a supernatural thing, mystical, and he doesn't even believe it's metaphysical. He sees magic as scientific, as science. And he's also the author of Magic, It's All in Your Head, and known to work with several figures in the community on various channels. And his information is incredible. And I got to say, all the way from Scotland, man, thank you so much for joining us on Lighting the Void. I know it's super early in the morning there, but if you're like me, you're probably up at these hours anyways, right?
Pleasure to be here, man. Yeah, the past few nights I've been up pretty late. I have a crazy schedule. So nighttime, this is my evening, and it's 5 a.m.
Yeah, I feel like some type of sloth, hermit, wizard. I can't explain it, but usually I go to bed when the sun comes up or a little bit after. It does take its toll on you after a while, though, if you don't get enough sun.
For me, I have this weird thing I do where I'll sleep like 14 hours, and then I'll be up for 40. And so all the schedule is, there's no balance, and so it just throws me off completely. So I've had to get some sleeping pills ordered so that I can balance that out a little bit.
Well, there you go, man. You got to do what you got to do to get that rest. Now, here's the thing. I love talking to magicians. When I find somebody worth talking to, I really want to get them on the show. It's like the first thing that I want to do is get them on this show and talk to them. And you're different in a way that, kind of like Dean Radin was talking to us about, that there is a science to this that maybe a lot of us don't understand. Maybe you understand more than most. So what I want to figure out is I know that the discussion topic tonight is black and white magic, right? So I want to really kind of cover that too, but I also want to learn about your journey, man, because if you go on YouTube, you got this video where you're doing this intense, what is it, Odin invocation or something? Ritual. Yeah. And it's super intense looking. And tell me about that. What was that all about?
That ritual, the Eye of Odin ritual, is single-handedly my most popular ritual that I've ever written about, talked about, recorded. It's probably what a lot of people will know me for is that ritual. It actually came about through a pathworking I did when I was with Become a Living God. And I did it was around about 2 years straight of pathworking Norse magic, specifically. What I referred to as the path of the Vitki. Vitki is just the Scandinavian word for sorcerer. And I was pathworking a very specific system. I was looking to modernize ancient rune magic and ancient Norse magic and bring that into a much more modern day that it's applicable. Because, why do you need some bind runes that are going to keep you, safe at sea? Because how many of us are traveling on boats nowadays? And so I've always been a firm believer that magic has to go with the times. And so the traditions have to be upgraded and, tailored to fit the times, so to speak. They have to move with the times. And the Eye of Odin was a ritual that I did which, it changed my life, essentially. You go back, how long ago was it that I did my own one? It must have been coming up for 2 years now. And it threw my life into chaos to begin with. It changed everything. I was living in Arizona. I was married, had a ton of stuff going on, and that turned my life upside down. And now I'm back here in Scotland, divorced, and got an entirely new life set up. And it's amazing how something that seemed so small and insignificant changed my life that much.
Well, when I think of Odin, though, I mean, honestly, man, I think of the Avengers, stuff like that. I think that it's not real. Like Odin's a cartoon character or something that doesn't really exist. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to downplay it or anything, but why Odin? Why? No. I mean, is Odin real?
Is he real? Well, that depends on what you define as real. I mean, is anything real? Look at this is where my work really gets interesting, because real is a subjective term. What is real to someone else is an illusion to someone else. Real is perspective. I mean, what is reality? Here's a question for you, and for everyone in the audience. If you had no five senses, so if you didn't have sight, sound, taste, etc., what would reality be like?
That's a good question.
Well, it would be blank. You wouldn't know reality, because reality is filtered through the mind, and the five senses is how we interface with reality. And so if you don't have those, you don't have reality. So then you understand, well, okay, how do those things work? Well, everything is just vibrations, and our five senses are transmitting data to our brains or our minds that then create experiences. Everything you see is completely subjective. How do I know that the color blue that I see doesn't look red to someone else?
I've always wondered that, man. If we were all seeing different colors and we just called the same colors the same, because it's basically molecules and reflections. So when we were all taught red, right, we were all seeing the same molecules, but maybe we weren't seeing the same colors. And so we'll never know. And I remember there's this channeled material called the Emerald Tablets of Thoth where he talks about that. He said all people do not see the same thing with the same eyes or something. That just kind of made me think about that.
Well, I mean, if you want some kind of solid way to test it, I mean, why is it that two people can taste the same thing and have a different response to it? Why is it that some people like ice cream and some people don't? Is it the ice cream that's different, or is it that they're different? Well, the fact is that it's subjective, and that goes for 99% of reality. All of reality is subjective, which is why it's interesting. It's because everyone has a chance to be different and experience different things. Okay, so and that goes for
why the ritual then, though? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but why the play, why the circle and the intense drama? Why do you do that?
Well, that goes into a lot about the science of ritual. I don't want to. I don't want to go into too much detail with the science because we could be here for literally 2 days talking about just the science of the ritual. But just to, keep it easy for people, a ritual is essentially method acting. That's how I like to describe it. So for those of you who don't know what method acting is, it's when an actor stays in character even when they're not being filmed. And it's, a way for them to kind of immerse themselves in the role. Well, that's what we're doing. We're immersing ourselves with symbolism and external stimuli and engaging in psychodrama to achieve a certain result. So I'm a firm believer. I say even a believer. I mean, it's not even really a belief that magic is psychological. That essentially what a magician is doing is using psychological techniques to manifest things in their life. And we can go into science of that a little bit. But the ritual itself is a way for me to engage with my own mind. And so the ritual is completely subjective. All the symbols, all the stimuli, all the components, all the characters, all the everything in it is just how I'm immersing myself in appealing to my own subconscious.
And when you appeal to your subconscious, from my experience, the universe tends to, and I guess I can explain this. You could probably explain it better, but doesn't the universe tend to listen better? It seems like when you do things like that.
Kind of. A lot of people say that. Well, I mean, it's fairly easy to explain. It's just that it doesn't feel easy to explain.
Yeah.
This is one of the things I've found with magic as a whole. It's that things feel complicated, but are actually very simple. And it just takes a little bit of prodding to get the it's like a puzzle. Puzzles aren't inherently difficult, but, they take a while to put together. That's like magic. It's the mechanics of how it works are very, very simple. They operate on a very basic way. It's just the understanding that and getting to that means overcoming what we want it to be, and we want it to be complex. And so that's kind of the crux of it all, I think.
Yeah, I want it to be supernatural. I want it to be cool and mystical and stuff. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, but essentially what a magician's doing in a ritual, and this applies to every tradition, this is what I would call the objective, which is the objective mechanics, how every single ritual works, how everything that's happening for every magician when they go into magic is they're using their conscious mind to impress upon their subconscious. So you have an idea that you want to make more money. So you impress that idea upon your subconscious through ritual, using external stimuli to kind of feed it back to yourself. You use things like placebo and pareidolia and psychodrama to do that. You appeal to your subconscious, it takes the information. And now a lot of people will say that the universe manifests it. And it's kind of a half-truth. We could go into the whole the universe exists within you thing, but instead of being cliche, what you're doing is you're unconsciously changing your behavior. So when you get up in the morning and you put that suit on for your work, you feel different, don't you?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. The things you wear, your attitude changes, your confidence changes, the way you speak to people changes. But what people forget is that your behavior changes unconsciously. We're always in motion. The universe is always in motion. And so we're changing every day. Our moods, the things that we, our outlook on the world, our mindset. And what's happening when you do a ritual is that your subconscious is just unconsciously changing your behaviors in ways that we don't notice consciously. So you want to get that new job at work, You want to get some more money. And so you do the ritual, goes into your subconscious, and then you start unconsciously changing your behavior, and your boss goes, hey, I just remembered some guy, he's calling in sick next week. He's going off for his holidays. You want to get some overtime? And whoa, there you have it. There's some extra money in your bank. And it's just essentially changing your environment in a very, very subtle level. I wouldn't even say it's the universe. It's definitely synchronistic. But what people don't understand is that they control their environment in a big way. If you're looking for something unconsciously, you'll find it.
But what about the orange ball? What about that? I mean, is that just, okay, now I'm noticing the ball? Or, because it seemed to me, when I talk about the orange ball, by the way, I'm talking about the traditional sigil that creates the orange ball that shows up in your yard. There
are some things, I mean, I have no idea the mechanics behind that sigil. It's one of those things that it's difficult to explain, but you also have to look at, well, how many people who look at that sigil get an orange ball in your yard. Without looking at actual statistics, it's very difficult to say. And that's one of the biggest issues I have with magic, is that it's very difficult to get real statistics to measure results against. How it works in science is that if you do an experiment and you get a certain result, that doesn't mean it's proven. You have to go and get other people to test it and see if they get the same result. That's how you find objective truths. And so without having 1,000 people do that same test and all submit results, it's hard to look at the ratio of, well, how many people did it? Why didn't some other people do it? It's a difficult thing to say definitively.
So in my life, with the magic that I've experimented with, and everybody knows I've experimented with, it really seemed to me like it was a spiritual thing. I mean, man, I started having out-of-body experiences. I did, like you say, become aware of things that I never saw before. Polarity was the first one. Things did manifest in a way that seemed magical, but it's almost as hard, and just no offense, but it's almost as hard for me to believe that magic is all psychological than just to believe in magic, period. You see what I mean? Like, it seems to me it's more than that, or maybe I just want it to be more than that. I don't know. You got me thinking.
There are definitely things in the world that are, what's the word? That are baffling. They're mind-baffling. There's certain things that science can't explain. There's several times science has had to hold its hand up and say, we have no idea. But for the majority of magical practice, I'm pretty confident in laying out the science. And it's a difficult thing to do because a lot of people don't want to have their bubbles burst. And this is the biggest problem, not just with the magical and spiritual communities, but with society right now, is that how many people have a basic understanding of psychology? How many people actually understand the mechanics of their own mind? Now, I'm not saying that they have to have a PhD, but people don't even, how many people know that their brains have two halves and what those halves actually govern?
Right.
Few people can tell you that. How many people can tell you what pareidolia or placebo is? How many people know what psychodrama is? How many people understand that their subconscious is completely open for the first 9 years of their lives, and so they're copying behavior from the people they're around for the first 9 years? People don't understand those things, and so they come into the spiritual community with no understanding, and something that seems completely supernatural, which can be very easily explained, seems out of this world. And I was one of those people. I was definitely one of those people who, you have these crazy experiences and you go, well, that had to be, and this supernatural thing. And then you get to understand the psychology of it better and the science, and you go, well, okay, actually that makes more sense. But this is the difference, I think, between me and a lot of other people. A lot of people think that if you can explain magic by science, it somehow devalues their experience. They think that you're disproving them. You think that they're showing them that they're wrong. But actually, I think it's the opposite. Because you're saying, well, actually, no, science is recognizing that what you're doing actually works, regardless of the perspective you have on what it was. It's proven that it actually works, and that something beneficial has happened from it. And so I think that it's actually a match made in heaven. Because by understanding, look at Hermeticism. The law of mentalism. Tell me that that's not a nod to psychology right there. Understand your mind. That's ancient Hermeticism, ancient mystical tradition, telling you the all is mind. Pay attention to it. I think that we as a society have lost grip on a lot of important things. You look at the schooling system today, where, kids aren't taught to do their taxes. They're not taught Latin. They're not taught, skills that are going to help them. They're taught this regurgitated nonsense rather than things that they're actually going to use when they leave. And I think that psychology is one of those, because a lot of people get tricked and fooled and scammed their entire lives and not even know that it's happening to them. And I think that if we had that basic understanding, there would be a lot less misfortune. And
so, are you? If you know, a lot of people like to categorize magicians, ceremonial magician. No, you're a black magician, or you're a chaos magician. What kind of magician are you?
I try not to label it, to be honest. I'm just a dude who talks too much, I think.
I like it.
I mean, every type of those magics have a type of goal. You know, ceremonial magicians are looking to do this. Black magicians are looking for ascension, whatever that's supposed to be. You know, I've got a very basic philosophy for magic. You know, the whole point of magic is to just make day-to-day life a little bit easier. I'm just a regular dude who's, you know, studied a lot of mystical traditions and science along with it. And I like to think of myself more as a magical scientist than anything else, you know.
Has it made your life easier? Do you have a better life now?
Oh, definitely not. It depends on how you look at it. I mean, in some ways, yeah. In other ways, no. It's a more stressful life. But
I know in your Odin ritual, though, you know, the introduction to your YouTube channel, you talk about how it changed your life, like totally changed your life. You went through hell. You hit rock bottom, which a lot of people, they call that initiation. Don't understand. They think when they get into magic that everything's just going to work for them and they're going to have this beautiful life, but it forces you to deal with a lot of things that you're just been putting way back behind in the subconscious, right? You know, that you don't want to deal with. But it seemed like the theme of the video to me was that it did change your life for the good. Oh yeah.
But it messed up a lot of stuff too. You know, there was a lot of conflict, a lot of chaos. But that's, you know, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I think that in some ways, the more chaos you have going on, the better the horizon looks. And that's just one of the laws of nature, you know. Growth comes through conflict and pain and struggle. You know, you don't go anywhere by being comfortable. You know, look at even the basics of nature in terms of, you know, like how a tree grows. You know, the little seed, the fleshy bit on the inside has to break through this hard shell. That's a lot of struggle. Look at the caterpillar. He's got to feel all the pain as he melts down inside a cocoon while his brain is still alive, feeling all that. That's a lot of pain. But the end result is progress, is evolution. And that to me is a part of life, is that if you're trying to do something with your life and you're getting resistance, that means that you're doing something right, because that resistance is what gives you the tools you need to progress. Conflict breeds growth. You know, growth has to come. You know, it's the whole growing pains. You know, it's necessary. You know, you don't grow unless there's some form of conflict or struggle or strife. And so the times in your life where it seems the most darkest is just your moment of evolution. You know, just got to ride the wave. It's
funny, ride the wave. That's one of my favorite sayings. So it's funny you say that, though, because some people would say it's a synchronicity, but I just happened to be reading the book by Stephen Pressfield again, you know, The War of Art. And that's exactly what he calls it, is resistance. And he said, you know, resistance gets a bad rap because you want to be angry at it because it's trying to hold you back. But you need to be happy about it because it's actually a guide stone for you to let you know where you need to go.
I mean, you can observe it in societies too. Look at the times that where science has advanced the most have been in times of war. Now, I'm not saying that we should have more wars. That's not what I'm saying at all. You know, the discovery of the best is the worst, as they say. But if you look at the times where society and civilization has grown the most in terms of their technology or whatever, it's in times of conflict. It's in times of great wars, and you know, it's conflict that inspires us to grow and do better, because it's like going to the gym by yourself. You know, if you had your own private gym, right? You've been sitting on your couch for a few months, you're starting to get a bit of a beer belly, and you think, okay, maybe I should hit the gym. What do? Do you get a private gym where it's just yourself? Or do you go there with dudes who are jacked, much 10 times bigger than you? What's going to make you go, okay, maybe I need to lift a bit more weights. Maybe I need to push myself a bit harder.
Well,
Arnold
you need
Schwarzenegger.
you need to be around the jack guys that are looking in the mirror all the time, I think.
Yeah.
That's
exactly what Arnold Schwarzenegger did. He put, he did a few things actually. He put a lot of pictures of buff dudes in his room and in his gym to make him work harder. And he would post pictures or print pictures or send them, whatever it was. This was probably before the internet or before social media and whatnot. That would, he would deliberately show off his insecurities because that would make him work harder to change them. Same with anything. We grow by being under pressure.
Well, before we do the news with Vance here, so is there just no spirituality to magic in your opinion? I mean, is it all just a super intense way to trick the mind into becoming aware of other things? Is that all it really is?
I mean, I don't see the spiritual as anything different. I mean, a lot of people, here's the big contradiction in spirituality. They say that, all things are connected and we want to connect back with nature and all this stuff. Yet they see the spiritual as completely separated from the physical. Well, how can there be no degrees of separation between those things if there's a clear line of separation? I don't believe that the physical and the spiritual are different. I believe they're the same thing. It's just a different perspective. It's not to say that the science can't be spiritual. Science, in a way, is spiritual. I mean, what is spirituality? What does it mean to be spiritual?
Right. So, don't really think of things that way. I've always just kind of thought, hey, I'm doing magic, and as soon as I let this go, it'll probably happen. And that's the way I've always thought about it. But, yeah, you got me thinking, man. This is good stuff. We're going to go into the news. We'll be right back, guys, with Darren Taylor, also known as Asbjorn Torvol. You guys don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
To Lighting the Void Radio.
The truth is out there.
There's something out here.
And so are we. KTOK Digital Broadcasting, The Fringe FM.
From Studio 303, it's the Stranger Than Fiction News for The Fringe FM, bringing light to the stories that surround us. Is it possible that NASA's James Webb Space Telescope could detect alien life? If it does launch as currently scheduled in 2021, it will be 14 years late. When finally in position, though, orbiting the sun at 1.5 million kilometers from Earth, NASA's James Webb Space Telescope promises an astronomical revolution. The Webb Telescope contains novel technologies that have never been previously flown in space. Read all the details at the bbc.uk. And a woman who is dangerously allergic to water. Heidi Falconer, 31, is one of a few people in the world born with aquagenic urticaria, a potentially fatal allergy to water. One small drop of water on Heidi's skin breaks her out in blisters in seconds. Even tears down her face can leave her cheeks red and cracked. She cannot drink water, bathe, or shower in it, or even go outside when it's raining because of the possibility of going into shock. Water accounts for 80% of the human body. Thereby, Heidi is technically allergic to herself. In a world-first operation, surgeons had to go as far as removing Heidi's appendix using virtually no water-based products. She survives by consuming 4 small glasses of milk or orange juice a day and eating dry foods like chicken and biscuits. This story was published at socialnewsdaily.com. And there are trees that actually bleed metal. Heavy metals like nickel and zinc are usually the last thing that plants want to grow next to in high concentrations. But a specialized group known as hyperaccumulators have evolved to take up the normally toxic metals into their stems, leaves, and even into the seeds. But researchers have been studying a tree that grows on the island of New Caledonia in the South Pacific. They think it may use nickel to defend against insects. Its latex has an unusual blue-green color as it contains up to 25% nickel. You could read more of this interesting story at the bbc.uk. And a strange rectangular-shaped object spotted over North Carolina. On the night of August 18, 2018, while driving home, Javian Hill recorded a mysterious square-shaped UFO southwest of Charlotte, North Carolina. He was photographing storm clouds overhead to send to his wife when he noticed a rectangular shape in the sky with lights on his side. He's quoted as saying, "Oh my God, what is that? I started trying to take as many pictures of it as possible while I was driving," he told the Charlotte Observer. North Carolina is one of the top 10 states for reports of UFO sightings, and Hill's experience is the latest in a series of unusual sightings in the area. Read more of the details at bendedreality.com. And now it's time for another edition of the Stranger Than Fiction Fun Fact. The Earth has actually traveled more than 3,000 miles in the time of this newscast. And that wraps it up for another edition of the Stranger Than Fiction News right here on the Fringe FM. I'm Vance Nesbitt. Stick around for more Lighting the Void with your host, Joe Roop.
This is Jason Lindgren from Crow 777 Radio, and you can hear us 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every Saturday night here on the Fringe FM.
This is Cortana from Shift Happens, telling you to pour a glass and park your ass, because you're listening to KTLK, the Fringe FM. Shifthead.
Folks, this is very important information. What's to be said about CBD? AncientLifeOil.com. Our CBD is made from hemp and has 0.003 THC, which means this wonderful product won't get you high, no matter what amount you take. What does CBD do for the body? My hands are tied, but you can Google CBD benefits and be astounded. When you're finished reading, you'll want to log on to AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com. And purchase. Life is good when you feel good. People are tired of pain. People are asking for non-GMO organic products to help them with, you fill in the blank. Legal in 49 states, and again, our CBD is made from hemp. Ancient Life Oil is about helping people one by one by one. If you wonder how good the product is, the CEO takes it every day without miss. AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com. Have a great day.
Howdy, this is Catalina, and you're listening to Lighting the Void with Joe Roop.
Welcome back to Lighting the Void. I'm your host, Joe Roop. Don't forget, this show is here for you every night of the week. Well, Monday through Thursday night, every night, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, right on the Fringe FM. And then after my show, The Secret Teachings with Ryan Gable comes on. That's an awesome show, too. So we got shows going all the way into the early morning hours for you. We're here with Darren Taylor, also known as Asbjorn Torvol. We're discussing magic, the science behind it, the reality of it, and we're going to get into the famous discussion of black and white magic, which is it's a very obvious polar discussion, but it is something that's brought up frequently. And before we get into that, Darren, I just want to just say, man, you're in Scotland. You don't sound very Scottish. There's got to be a story behind that.
Everybody says the same thing. I don't sound Scottish. My father was very common, or what we call common. So he sounds very Scottish, talks very Scottish, or he did, until he moved down to England. My mother, however, she was, I don't want to say posh, because that would be the wrong word. She's not poncy. She's not posh. But she was well-spoken. And so my mother always said, you speak properly. She didn't want me to be common. And so I like to think that it's come from there. I never really had a strong accent because of it. But I also moved to the United States and lived there for 2 years. So I lost the accent within a few months of being there. And a lot of people thought I was from California. And I came back and I never really acclimated back to the accent that I did have. So, yeah.
Wow. I was for sure thinking you were going to say like, yeah, well, I was from America, then I moved. No, that's never heard anything like that. That's incredible.
But it's also, I think, and this is just me speculating, that it's because I do a lot of podcasts and stuff that I've taught to really be aware of how I'm speaking. You know, you'll know yourself being a radio host. You're very aware of how you're speaking.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's something just that I talk too much, you know, and I get used to hearing my own voice. And
by the way, I want to mention that I'm not going to give credit to this website, but Lighting the Void has made one of the top 200 fake shill. I'm supposedly an intelligence agent that's getting paid by the government, and there's a top 200 list on a certain website, and I'm proud to be there. You know, I guess no publicity is bad publicity, but you have got to be a moron if you think I'm getting checks from the government, because I've yet to get one. And if anybody knows where they are, I'd love to see them. But it's like Fakeologist or some other website, I forget, but you'll see it there. But anyway, so I really want to combat you on this, man. I don't know why, but there's something inside of me that wants to go, no, Darren, like magic is real in a sense that magical things happen. When I say magic that are outside of the norm, when people do invocations or evocations, I've had magicians come on here and told me they saw the angels or the Enochian magic that was super powerful to them. People that have went into different astral realms and stuff, and it's like, how can this just be all in the mind? I mean, are you just saying that we just don't understand the mind yet, maybe? Somewhat, yeah. But I think that people want to have the perspective that all this stuff is separate from reality. They want to see, I would love to live in Lord of the Rings. I would love to be in the Star Wars universe, but unfortunately I can't. You know, people mix up what they want with what is. And that is a huge issue with this community. Now, one of the biggest things with this community is a lot of people come here because of Hollywood, because they love magic in the movies and in the books. You know, just not to give too much of a nod to Harry Potter, but Harry Potter is responsible for a huge influx in this community. When you say here, the same with Scotland, like Bolaskin, or what do you mean? Oh, I just mean just the community in general. Oh, okay. I got you. Overall. And so fiction has inspired a lot of people to look into real magic. And the problem is that they come there with an expectation that it's going to be all this fantasy cool stuff. And then they never really grow out of it. They stay with that. And this is the same across several different traditions, several different industries, is that people mix up what they would like with what actually is. And it comes from not necessarily ignorance, although that is definitely a part of it, but something called nescience. Now, I want to differentiate the two words here because most people don't have a clue what ignorance or nescience is. Ignorance is willfully ignoring information you have in front of you. Nescience is not knowing something because the information isn't available. In the age of information, you know, with the internet, you could say that nescience doesn't really exist anymore. But, you know, we don't always have the information sitting in our lap. And I think that a lot of people are just nescient to the things that happen in their own mind. I'm not saying that magic isn't magical. I'm not saying that it's not amazing. It definitely is. I think that it's more mind-blowing to understand the things that you can do within your own mind. What sounds more crazy? That you can, you know, pray to a god, throw some stuff on an altar, and have some money appear through coincidence? Or the fact that you can make that happen through your own mind without the need for a god? That those gods are actually a part of you, that you are method acting as that god. That to me is crazy. But that's also scary, though, to a lot of people to even hear you say something like that. That freaks a lot of people out. Mm-hmm. Sure. It even kind of scares me. I mean, I don't know about you, but it even kind of scares me because I've always got this thing in the back of my mind, Darren, that what if I'm being fooled, tricked in a massive way? And I don't know if that's because I'm around the conspiracy community so much that I get to thinking that. But I wonder just how deep deception can go.
I mean, that's essentially what ritual magic, or what I call intentional magic, is. You're using psychological techniques to trick your mind, to trick your subconscious. All ritual is just hypnosis. All you're doing is overloading your conscious mind with stimuli to get to your subconscious. You know, here's the thing: is if you look at what's happening in a ritual, just look at the bare science of it. It makes perfect sense. Let's take magic, because a lot of people think that magic is this oogie boogie voodoo stuff, and you know, the sound of that is cool. But let's look at how Aleister Crowley defined magic: the art and science of causing change to occur in conformity with will. Now, by that definition, and I'm going to quote Frater Xavier here, going to your fridge and making a turkey sandwich is magic. You're causing change to occur in conformity with your will, right? That definition applies to every single thing you do on a daily basis. You want to go, you're going to get up and go to bed, you're causing change to occur in conformity with your will. So everything is magic. Magic is life. So, as you said, that magic would cancel itself out. It doesn't exist. It's just, you know, part of how reality works. But what we define as magic is intentional magic. Now let's look at the process. And I mean, observe and really dissect the process of making a turkey sandwich, right? I know this sounds crazy, right? You're sitting in your chair. You have a thought. You know what? I'm really in the mood for a sandwich. So you consciously stand up and you go and make a sandwich, right? It's mostly conscious thought. But do you have to think about making the sandwich? Like, do you have to think, okay, how do I spread the butter on the bread the right way? No, it's all subconscious muscle memory, right? I mean, you know how to make a
nasty turkey sandwich, by the way. Butter and turkey, I don't know.
You know, I'm just throwing stuff out here. You know, however you want to make your sandwiches.
But no, yeah, I get it. I get what you're saying.
Yeah. So, you know, you don't have to think about making the sandwich. You just do it. It's all muscle memory. The same as riding a bike. So let's look at ritual. You are looking to do the same thing, make a change in conformity with your will. The only difference between the sandwich and the ritual is the percentage of the two halves of your mind. When you make a turkey sandwich, you're consciously making the thought, and then you don't have to do a ritual to make the sandwich. But your subconscious already knows what to do because you've been doing it for however long you've been making sandwiches for. How long have you been doing ritual for? How long have you been doing ritual longer than you've been making sandwiches? Because getting that into muscle memory is a lot more difficult. And so the only difference, well, actually, let's observe it even further. The first time you made a sandwich, you had to think about all of it, didn't you?
Yeah, you did. You pictured it in your mind.
You had to consciously think about all the ingredients. Yeah, how is that any different from a ritual?
Well, I mean, I get what you're saying, but there's this whole law of attraction thing that's like, I'm supposed to get on, look in the mirror, say, you're good, you're great, you're wonderful, everybody loves me, I'm flowing in abundance, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Do it every day, and eventually that's what's going to happen in your life. Well, what's the difference between that and drawing a circle around yourself and praying to Odin?
The difference is the percentage of your conscious mind that you're using. The process, the scientific process from A to B, from the start to the finish, is exactly the same. The difference is how you fill in the gaps. The difference is the stimuli. So, let's think of making a sandwich as a ritual. You've got all the components there, which, you've got the knife, there's your ritual dagger, right? You've got the bread, there's your offering. You've got the action of actually making it. Well, a ritual is not that much different. The only difference is it's intentional, and it's in a setting that's unusual to us. Now, the process is the same. I'm not saying they're exactly the same thing, but the process, just the process from A to B, is the same. There's a lot of gaps in between. They're not identical.
Yeah, right.
Now, you look at a ritual. Every single ritual tool and component is a stimuli. Well, what is a stimuli? A stimuli is something that you associate with. So when you do a money ritual, you're choosing the colors and the sounds, the stimuli based on things that you associate with money. Why can't you use a red candle? Well, because you don't associate red with money. And so even in basic ritual, we've already admitted that we're using things that work with our subconscious to get those results. Because the subconscious needs to be feeded back with the same information. It needs to be, it's what I call the third party principle. So if you want to go and send a text message to me, right, that message has to go to a satellite and then be transmitted to me. So it has 3 points, from your mobile phone to the satellite to my mobile phone, 3 points. It needs to go externally to something else first before it comes back to the receiving mobile. Well, that's what ritual's doing. We're engaging with the ritual, which is a satellite, in order to feed back that information, that signal. And so a ritual is essentially our way of getting the information from our conscious mind into our subconscious. And then we unconsciously change our behavior and get a result.
Okay, so I'm with you on that. But what about specific rituals? Specific rituals that last days or months? Like, let's say, and I don't know how many people are familiar with this, but I'm sure you are. The Abramelin and the Mage ritual, you know, when you're trying to do the Holy Guardian Angel thing. If these things, they're written down in a specific formula, kind of like an IP address or whatever, tapping into a network, it seems like to me anyways. There's something else out there. I mean, I get what you're saying. It's just like, I guess I'm just trying to separate everything in my mind.
Well, you've got to think of it in 2 different sections, the objective and the subjective. The process that I've just outlined is the objective. The subjective is everything in between. All stimuli is subjective. You know, as we established earlier on, why is it that somebody likes the taste of, you know, turkey sandwiches and some people don't? Right. You know, it's subjective. Reality is subjective. And so the rituals have to be tailored to the individual specifically. You know, all cars are built with the same principles, but they all look different. Right?
Yeah, sure.
All cars have the same principles on how they function. They have got an engine, they've got an exhaust, they've got wheels, they've got a steering wheel, but all the bodies are always different. They can be decorated different. Every house is built with the same principles in their foundation, but they're all decorated different. Well, this is the same with magic. It follows the same principle. The principles of how it works are always the same. They're objective. How we choose to engage with them, or decorate it rather, is the subjective, which is why 2 people can practice 2 completely different magical traditions and still get results, because there is no right tradition. It's all subjective. It's all depending on what you relate to with your subconscious. And as we all know, we're all psychologically built different.
Right. Yeah. So you may relate better to Odin at the time being or whatever. I may relate better to the Elohim or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly it. You know, and it comes from understanding the nature of gods as well. This is something that's somewhat even controversial with my work, because a lot of people don't like to see the gods as these external figures. But I'll preface this by saying that it is undeniable that every single god that we know of today, the only reason we know about it is because it was written by man. All mythology was written by men. Indisputable. And so we have to also admit that our minds are flawed. And we all to understand this. It's very easy to trick the mind. I mean, this is why hypnotists are so successful, is because they understand that our minds are very, very easy to manipulate. We're very suggestible. We're very easy to fool. Vote for Donald Trump, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, like, you don't want me to go there, man. Like,
I just thought I'd throw that out just for a bit of laughs.
Look, you know, if you met that guy on the street, you would be so repulsed, but because he's involved in polarity or fighting for a side, it doesn't matter what he does. I mean, I really think this guy could go out and cut someone's throat in public and dance around their body, and people would make excuses for him. I really do.
I have actually met him, funnily enough. He has a golf course here in my hometown.
You met Trump?
I've met Trump, yeah.
Well, there's a famous golf course there, but that's probably the most famous golf course in Scotland. Okay. All right. So I'm with you on this thing, but what's bothering me, or what I'm troubled about is, and what's always troubled me is demons, right? And when I say demons, I'm not just trying to be real stupid about it. I'm trying to understand the grimoires from this aspect. I've got Lon Maladuquette telling me it's all in your head. You just got to know how big your head is. Same thing you're telling me, right? Mm-hmm. I've got Jason Louv kind of telling me that. I've got Gordon White telling me, no, these things are very real. And anybody that's ever done a demonic invocation, if they've done it properly, can attest to the reality and the power of these things. So where do we go? Where can I go from there? Because all of these people I've talked to are wonderful.
All of those people are right. There's nothing in that any of them have said that is wrong. Yes, they are very real, because anything you can think of is real. But you have to ask yourself, well, what is real? Does real mean that it exists on a more physical level than something else? No, because nothing is technically physical. Everything is in reality itself is an illusion. If you understand molecular science, this table isn't solid. I mean, look at us as humans. Are you an individual? Now that's a question. Ask yourself: Are you an individual?
In this reality, I am.
Right. Except you're made of billions and billions of single-celled organisms. So actually, you're a collective. Now, if we are a collective of millions and billions of single-celled organisms, we're technically billions and millions of individual little things. We're not an individual. See, now that depends on your perspective. And so reality is completely subjective. It depends upon your perspective. Real does not exist. Reality is a dream, and we are the imagination of ourselves.
Well, you know where people are going to go from that, right? They're going to say, well, now you're talking Luciferianism, Satanism, and this is not me, okay? I just know people that'll go there and say there's no place for morals. And this is like the idea of the black magician, where reality is all an illusion and there's really no consequences for your moral actions. So you can do whatever you want.
There's definitely consequences. Just because reality isn't a certain way doesn't mean that we don't still have etiquette. We still exist for some reason on a collective, we all interface with this reality in the same way. It's not solipsism. It's not the universe shines out my backside. Reality itself is subjective, but that doesn't mean that we can't get on with each other. It's just a different way of looking at existence. Morals are subjective. If I go and punch a guy on the street, someone might say he deserved it. Someone else might say, well, no one deserves to be punched. Who's right? None of them. It's subjective. Same with morality. There is no morality. Morality is a personal, subjective thing. Now, we can all collectively agree that certain things are wrong, but what about that one person that disagrees? Who's right and who's wrong? And it's like height. If you get three people standing in a line, you have one person who's, short, person who's the tallest, and then you have one in the middle. Is the one in the middle short or tall? Well, it depends. Depends on who you measure them against. Same in morality. It's subjective. It depends. It's completely dependent upon perspective.
So okay, all right. And I'm delving into the black and white magic thing here, right? You know where I'm going with this. I don't have to tell you.
Yeah.
You know where I'm going. So let's say somebody does something repulsive in front of my eyes. Someone murders somebody, rapes, kills, child, woman, doesn't matter. Just imagine the most horrific thing that could happen to a human being happens in front of your eyes. That feeling you get, the only way to explain it is a black hole in your soul when you saw it. That's an illusion. That's not evil. Doesn't exist.
Well, just because something isn't real doesn't mean we can't have feelings for it. I'm not saying that reality isn't real. I'm saying that it's an illusion. But real is subjective. That we're living in a dream. It doesn't mean that experiences aren't valuable. See, this is the big thing I have an issue with within this community, is that people think that because something isn't what they think it is, that it immediately devalues it. No, I'm not saying that at all. We can still live a very concise, fun, loving life with our own morals intact. We can still embrace our identity just because something isn't what it seems. Having an understanding of something doesn't obliterate the decisions you made before. It doesn't absolve you of any guilt either, because we all understand that we can think and we can feel. Regardless of whether this reality is real or not, we still have feelings. We're still impacted. We have this thing called experiences. And regardless of whether we think they're real or not, like, look, the Matrix did a good job of this, actually. How do you know that life isn't a dream? Because when you're in a dream, you don't know you're dreaming until you wake up. So how do you know this isn't a dream?
I can usually attest to this by inflicting pain on myself. And that's another thing, too. I understand that this is a very vivid illusion. Thomas Campbell kind of talked to me about that. But if I get kicked in the groin in a dream, and if I get kicked in the groin in real life, I can tell you there's two differences there. Big ones.
Sure, I'm not saying they're no different. What I'm saying is that they're still experiences. I've had dreams that are so vivid that they feel real. They're still experiences. Too. They still make you feel things. Why? Okay, here's another thing. Why is it that when you go to the movies and you watch a horror movie, you know it's not real, but you still jump? You still have feelings. You still feel the emotions. You still connect with characters, even if they're not real. Well, because it doesn't matter if they're real or not. See, people put too much stock in whether or not something exists rather than just embracing it for what it is. Just have experiences and rejoice in it. It doesn't matter whether or not you think they're real or not.
Do you, before we take a small break here, do you personally believe, not know, but believe in life after death? That there's something beyond the death of the physical body?
I can give you a scientific answer if you like.
Any answer?
I believe in reincarnation, but only on a small scale. So everything's made up of energy. Physics has told us that energy cannot be created, therefore it cannot be destroyed. The energy just changes. It shifts. So scientifically speaking, this isn't even religiously speaking. This isn't a belief. This is basic physics. That when we die, the energy that is our physical bodies will become something else. It will move on. It will reincarnate into whatever that will be. It will move on to something else. It will change. Our identity, however, I think is subjective. I think that fades. I think that when we die, our identity dies, but the energy that we carry moves on. Now, the reason I believe this is because the cells that form our minds also hold our identity. So if you split those cells apart, you're splitting the identity apart. So when the body dies, the identity attached with it dies with it. That is my belief in terms of identity.
But you do know there are cases of children that have come back and talked about their murderers, like documented cases.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, like I said, I'm not saying that the world isn't weird. There's definitely things that definitely things that I don't know. But following,
but we're sticking with what we know for sure.
Well, it's not even sticking from what I know. It's sticking from what I can say has the most solid evidence.
Gotcha.
This is before we skip to the break here, just to save people misunderstanding where I'm coming from with magic, because I'm not going out here just to burst people's bubbles. I believe very strongly that in order for us to have a true understanding of a subject, we have to look at it objectively. We can't base it on personal feelings and biases. We have to look at the evidence rather than personal truths, because our minds are flawed. It's very easy to trick people. It's very easy to believe things that don't exist. And I'm not saying that there's things in this community that don't exist. What I'm saying is that the only way to get to know for sure is to have evidence that doesn't rely on your personal opinion or your feelings or your emotions, things that are objective. And so that's why I look at magic objectively, is so that if I distance my feelings from it, distance what I want to think, and look at what I can say definitively is there, I can paint a more solid picture with it.
I can tell you what I'm feeling right now as we go into the break. I don't know if I'm talking to a genius, that's somebody that understands magic way more than me, or if I'm speaking to Satan himself. But you know what? We're gonna figure that out. We're gonna try to. I'm just playing with you, man. You're not Satan, are you?
Well, we'll find out after the break.
All right. Well, we'll be right back.
How you doing today, guys? This is Garrett Lee.
And this is Randy Warner.
We're the hosts of Healers and Hellraisers, and you're listening to The Fringe FM.
I think by now we can get the information.
I love magic, and on Lighting the Void, each and every week, you will get to hear shows about magic, mysticism, and many other subjects that stretch your mind and imagination. So when I got my mind on the magic and the magic on my mind, I listened to Lighting the Void on the Fringe FM. It's magic.
May the gods look with favor upon you.
You're wondering what we're going to do to you, aren't you?
Hi, this is Sammy. Join us in the Deep South as we're lighting the void with Joe Roop on the Fringe FM.
Live for 3 hours every Saturday night. It's a show that engages the mind, makes you think, and maybe even challenge what you think you know. Hi, I'm Jeremy Scott of Into the Paranormal, where we talk about topics that are anything but mainstream, somewhere between abnormal and paranormal. Bring an open mind and join us for Into the Paranormal, live Saturdays at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern on the Fringe FM.
From birth, we have been conditioned to conform to what is normal, conditioned to adhere to authority, and conditioned to repeat what has been told to us as truth. I'm Ryan Gable, and here at the Secret Teachings Radio, I've interviewed hundreds of great guests and done extensive unique research into subjects that span from the paranormal and the occult to health, philosophy, and history. I personally have no affiliations or agenda, except to use objective critical thinking in my analysis of every subject discussed, to empower myself with information and hopefully allow you to do the same. If you want to join me, tune into the Secret Teachings radio broadcast, airing live Monday through Friday from midnight to 3 a.m. U.S. Pacific Standard Time on the Fringe FM. For more information, you can visit our website at www.thesecretteachings.info or email me at rdgable@yahoo.com.
Reclaim your active lifestyle with Angioprim. Angioprim is the original liquid oral chelation supplement. Chelation helps remove toxins, heavy metals, and cholesterol in your veins and arteries that can cause blockages. Scientific research proves the active ingredient in Angioprim has superior oral chelation action that helps promote cardiovascular health. Find out more. Go to angioprim.com. Talk to a trained consultant by calling Angioprim toll-free 877-882-7221.
Hey, it's Grace. Can we talk about something serious for a minute? Your age. Getting old has its perks. But remember, being a few years younger, you know, your hair was thicker, you didn't have so many wrinkles, that extra weight wasn't haunting you, and you just felt better. Well, we can't turn back the clocks and go back 10 or 15 years, but you can start feeling and looking 10 or 15 years younger with Nature's Youth RSF. It's a doctor-formulated daily supplement that helps your body maintain its peak performance and fight the aging process. Imagine sleeping better, looking better, and feeling better. See how Nature's Youth RSF has helped thousands of people just like you at nature'syouth.com. nature'syouth.com. Imagine how it will feel when your family and friends are asking you what you did to look so good. Your secret will be Nature's Youth RSF. It's time to start looking better and feeling better. Learn more and order your Nature's Youth RSF at nature'syouth.com. That's nature'syouth.com. That's nature'syouth.com.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Want to know what's on The Fringe FM? Check out our schedule at thefringe.fm.
This is Elle. I listen to Lighting the Void because it's interactive radio with good content, interesting guests, and a humble host, sharing this journey through the esoteric. Hey, Joe Roop. Thanks for having us along for the ride.
Thank you so much for a delightful evening.
Well, I got a lot of ground to cover.
Hey, Fringe FM listeners, did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or no Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of the Fringe FM by calling 701-719-3971. No smartphone app or internet needed. Saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Call 701-719-3971. That's 701-719-3971. Listen to the Fringe FM on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Welcome back to Lighting the Void. I'm your host, Joe Roop. We're here with Darren Taylor, also known as Asbjorn Torvol. We're discussing magic, and we're about to get into black versus white magic. Now, during the break, I did realize that Darren's not Satan, but anytime I hear discussions like this, it reminds me of, and I'm not trying to offend you or anything. I don't want to, but it does remind me of like Anton LaVey and all those discussions, you know, where everything is super subjective and there's really no spirit. But you didn't really say that in its entirety, right? You're just going off what the evidence shows, and there's some weird stuff out there that we can't explain. That's what I'm getting so far from.
I mean, I wouldn't say it's all subjective. I mean, there's definitely objective stuff to it, and you know, that's the parts that I'm focusing on is the objective, but the subjective is undeniable. You know, that's the reason we have so many different magical traditions. Why is it that voodoo and Viking magic, you know, they're very different things, and yet they both work? Why? Why is it that they work? Well, because magic is subjective. And it's not a bad thing. The fact that it's subjective makes it more personal. You know, this is the same reason why some people prefer to work with certain gods and other people prefer to work with others. It gives us variety. It allows us to express ourselves into our magic, you know.
All right, so let's get into this black and white magic thing. Curses, right? Psychic attack and curses is something that we've talked about frequently on here. We have discussed the reality of it. In my mind, it's always better to be safe than sorry, right? That's just the way I look at things. But if it's subjective, if somebody puts a curse on someone, how does that work? Like, how does magic work between people? Is it just back to the antenna satellite type deal, or is that even real, do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, okay, let's say, I don't know if are you married to Saul?
No, I'm divorced, actually.
Divorced, okay. Well, okay. I was going to use an example. Oh, well, you mentioned your son.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when he was a kid, and, you know, every parent has that moment where their child gives them a drawing or something that's, you know, a touching moment. He made you feel emotion, right?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah. Makes you feel things that you have no control over. Things like that. Well, what about the person at work who just, for some reason, you just can't help but get annoyed at? Well, because everybody has the ability to affect their environment and other people. And so that's what a curse is doing. You're just affecting someone else's environment. You know, it's the same way that we do it physically. Now, curses, I believe that 90% of them are self-inflicted. Well, no, let me rephrase that. For people who practice magic, especially people who are vocal about it and who communicate with other practitioners of magic, most of the time it's self-inflicted because they convince themselves that someone else is doing magic on them. And so they create it themselves. You tell yourself that you're cursed. It's like it's a self-imposed jinx. And social media is the weapon for it nowadays. It's just become such an easy way to affect people's lives through making a Facebook post about them or something. And so, curses and magic has the ability to infect the environment because we have the ability to affect our environment. Simply that.
Well, the thing is I'm trying to find this balance here because it is a discussion. Like people are like, oh, there's no such thing in black and white magic. Magic is just magic. Well, I think when you intentionally set out to harm someone, this is subjective, I guess, too, because people say, well, what if that person's trying to harm you? Is there a dividing line, in your opinion, even in your personal life, maybe, that is it really just up to you to decide when it's time to pull out the black spells, or should we take an approach to where we just don't mess with it at all?
It depends on what you consider a black spell, or, what, in order to really give an answer, you have to define what those things are. I mean, what do you define as black magic? What do you define as white magic?
Let's say, for instance, somebody says, something bad about me, right? Or they're, they just said something I don't like, or they offended me, so I'm going to put a curse on them. Instead of, dealing with it myself as a human and just either ignoring them or acknowledging that, and not everybody's going to like you. I'm going to curse them and do something like, to me, that's evil. To me, that's kind of black magic or whatever you want to call it. I'm just curious as to your opinion on it.
Well, that would be more on the line of baneful magic. Black magic, to those who have studied black magic, and I don't mean in the stereotypical sense. I mean, like, the study of black magic is just magic without limits. White magic, on the other hand, is magic with limits. There's several different ways of defining it, but it's the same as the left and right-hand path. Left is more chaotic, and the right is more ceremonial. And so, baneful magic specifically, well, I mean, that depends. I mean, if someone's trying to harm you and your family, would you break out baneful magic to stop them?
If I couldn't do it myself, probably.
Yeah.
For sure.
So, I mean,
because it's just
depends.
self-defense to me.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I would agree with you on that. That's the only time that I myself would use it. But some people, there are nasty people in the world. There are people who are sour and bitter, and people who like to impose their will upon others. And so, yeah, people like that definitely do exist. But baneful it depends on context. Same with everything else, is that circumstance and context plays a huge part in those situations and in the application of that. But, it's the same as a knife. A knife isn't inherently good or evil. A knife can cut vegetables or make food, but it can also stab someone. And so it depends greatly upon how someone chooses to use it.
So, okay. All right. Now, I get that. I do. But what worries me is this stuff used to be in secret societies and occults. That's why it's called a cult, because it's hidden knowledge that, from my understanding, has been hidden in all types of different places, in all types of different cultures, but we've been really practicing it since the beginning of time. But I do believe, and I really don't care what people think about me for believing it, I do believe that certain people in higher ups, whether it's government, Hollywood, the music industry, whatever you want to call it, have used these methods to not only gain what they want, but have kind of manipulated the masses as well. And if I could put my finger on all this for sure, that would be great for me. But I know that there's occultists out there that see this stuff too.
Well, with the psychological method of magic, we're always doing magic, whether we're aware of it or not. It's something that you can't not be doing. Now, if you're talking specifically about intentional magic, yeah, there definitely is. George Bush admitted it. He admitted it live on TV, that he was a part of the Skull and Bone Society, who are known to practice these occulted rituals. There's several people who've admitted to doing it. It definitely exists. But the techniques that they're using regardless of how the ritual looks or what ritual they're doing, the objective science behind it is the same thing that every businessman is doing. You know, the way that people sell products through mass media marketing. How is that any different than doing a spell to make more money? It's for the same purpose. It's using the same techniques. The only difference is the method you choose to use. We have this thing that we've called a morning ritual, where we get up and we brush our teeth and we drink our coffee and then we get ready for work. Why do we call that a morning ritual? Because it's a routine. It's a routine. That's what a ritual is. It's a routine. The difference is that not all stimuli has to be in this occult setting. It doesn't have to be in this magical setting. Now, the reason I think that it works so well is because it's easier for us to relate to mythology, which is why I find that the mythological aspect of magic is very useful, because it's easier for us to identify with characters in a mythology and the symbolism than it is to relate to things today. You know, what's going to make us feel more excited? Being in this cool ritual robe in this room with all the candles, or dressing up in a suit? You know, there's something more appealing about relating to the mythology, and it stimulates and immerses people in an easier way. But putting on a suit in the morning, putting on the gold watch and grooming yourself and looking yourself in the mirror and making yourself look like $1 million and feeling like $1 million is the same thing as going into a ritual and doing a money candle. You know, there is no difference. The only difference is the stimuli, is the components that you're using. The method is exactly the same.
But you cut yourself in that ritual, though, right? And that Odin, I could have swore I saw you draw a little blood from yourself, right?
Yeah. Some rituals use it, some don't. It's completely subjective. What people need to understand is that everything is a symbol. But a symbol isn't just this stationary thing. A man in a suit is a symbol. The McDonald's logo is a symbol. Everything's a symbol.
What is
the New England Patriots is a symbol.
What is your blood? Why did you do that, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, because your blood is a symbol. In that setting, it represented giving life, giving the literal life that runs through my veins. And so it's all symbols. You're just immersing yourself in the symbolism that your mind is relating to.
And this goes back to back in the day when they used to do, and I guess they still are from what I hear, human sacrifices and stuff. Like, here's the thing, man, okay? And look, I don't want to offend anybody, and I definitely don't want to get in a magical war or whatever that stupid stuff is that people think they got to do. But when I heard a certain person justifying human sacrifice, that's where I drew the line. And you know, as if you got to know that stuff is out there, and it's in these books, man. And like there's an order out there that justifies it, and I'm not sure that they're not actually doing it.
If it's who I'm thinking of, I can, and I think I'm pretty confident I am. The actual topic of it wasn't that he was condoning it. He was just saying that it was a theory. It wasn't something that he actively engaged in. He wasn't condoning it or recommending it. It was just in theory, in magical theory, this is X, Y, and Z. But, you know, it's not something I condone. I don't find it necessary. I don't think that.
No, I'm not coming at you with it. I just know that they're called I guess it's the Order of the Nine Angles or whatever, right? This is what I've discovered. And if you really listen to their logic about the human sacrifice, it kind of makes sense. And I know that sounds crazy what I'm saying, okay? Mm-hmm. But that's the thing that I've kind of learned innately about evil, that it's super intelligent. You know, like I know you may not, but I do believe in evil. And I don't know if it's just because I've actually felt it, but it's more like a knowing. It's not something that I want to believe in. Believe me.
No, don't get me wrong. There's definitely things that there's definitely things that are bad, that are disgusting, that is horrible, that is what most would consider evil. But we also have to understand that not everybody sees it the same way. The evil person doesn't think they're evil. The villain never thinks that they're the villain.
Right. And crazy people don't think they're crazy. I know.
Right. And so it's, you know, you have to it's not even a debate, is that it's subjective. It's unless everybody agrees on it, it's subjective. It's completely dependent upon the person. But yeah, there's definitely stuff out there that is just outright stupid, let alone disgusting. Human sacrifice, I don't think that it's necessary, nor is it right. I think that, if anything, anyone who considers doing human sacrifice in any form of magic needs to get mental help. That's my take on it. I think that they seriously need to reconsider what they're doing with their life and get some help. Because no one in their right mind jumps to, you know what, I'm going to kill someone so I can do this ritual. I think that it's pointless.
Well, maybe they get into the symbology of it. Like, you know, for instance, you just told us, and I too believe this, about the power of the symbol of your own blood, right? I mean, it's in everything. There's so much esoteric stuff there about that. It's crazy. But let's say a person realizes this, and they, you know, the best rituals they ever done is when they cut themselves, or when they cut an animal or something, and because it really stimulated something in their brain, which really triggered it to happen, etc. And they justify in their mind, well, imagine the possibilities and the power of sacrifice. And Aleister Crowley thought about this. He talked about it. He did say that, you know, I would never do it, not for real, but I am curious about it. You see where I'm going with that?
Yeah, for sure. And I think that again falls to the mental state of the individual. I mean, you can take your own blood and use it in a ritual if you like, but I think that when you start considering forcing yourself to take someone else's or something else's, then it's a different story. It's, you know, you don't jump from hunting deer to feed your family to, you know what, I could kill Bob next door. You know, yeah, and it's the same in principle.
Right, yeah. So, but you don't kill little animals, right? Not on purpose, surely not.
No, I'm a huge lover of animals. I mean, I've hunted, I've done some fishing in my time, too. But I've never ritually killed an animal, because I don't feel the need to. I think that it's a waste of life in order to do that.
Well, you seem like a good person. You know, you do know I was kidding about the Satan thing, right? I don't want everybody, you know, it was a joke. I don't want everybody really thinking that I think you're Satan or anything. It's just,
you just don't want me to snap my fingers and remove half the world, right?
Yeah. I don't want you to do the Thanos thing on me, you know. But no, here's what I'm finding out for real. That there is definitely a form of megalomania once an occultist that they come into contact with. Once they realize that these methods work and that they can change their reality by doing these methods, then they confront their ego in a very severe way. And it's like Israel Regardie said, take therapy. You know, he's telling his people to take therapy if you're going to do this stuff in the Golden Dawn, just in case this happens. Well, there's certain things that happen, and I'm going to go down the conspiracy rabbit hole here because this is where I kind of wanted to go with this, that make me think that there's somebody out there, whether it's a skull and bones, I don't know what the hell it is, something out there that knows the power of this stuff and does sigil magic on a mass scale, mass sacrifices on a mass scale at certain types of dates and stuff. And I know this sounds crazy. I'm the last person to dive in for a conspiracy. But, you know, I do stay up at night and look at the stuff just like anybody else. And with my understanding of the occult, it really, I thought it would make less sense, but it's actually starting to make more sense to me. And I'm kind of lost there.
Yeah. I mean, just focus on the little stuff. You know, you got to ask yourself, what's the point? What's the point in magic? I mean, I was around black magicians for so long who talk about ascension. Ascension. I'm doing magic because I want to ascend. And then you ask them, what does that mean? What's ascension? And they have no explanation for you. People get into magic because it sounds cool, because they like the sound of being divine and all this stuff. And then you actually ask them about, well, what are you actually doing? What's the goal here? You know, give me some kind of grasp on what you're doing, and they can't, because not even they don't even understand it. I've asked people who've been doing this for decades, you know, what's the end game? What's the point?
Exactly.
And
exactly.
they can't give me an answer. I can tell you my answer. I can tell you fully to make day-to-day life just a little bit easier. That's it. No more, no less. I got into magic. Well, actually, no. There's two reasons. I'm fascinated by it. I'm fascinated by the science behind it. So that's the hobby part of it. I love understanding the science of the mind and specifically with magic too, and the mythology and stuff. But why do I do it for myself? To make day-to-day life easier. And I think that, it's a tool. Magic is a part of life, and it's a case of, I'm going to be doing it anyway, so I might as well try to do it right, Use the skills to make my life just a little bit easier. That's it. It's no more, no less. It's not about ascension. It's not about ascending to godhood and, whatever. It's just about, life's too short, man. I just want to experience everything possible and use magic to make life go a little bit smoother. That's it. That's all there is to it.
So do you even, well, I'll ask, we got to take a break, but I want to talk a little bit more about, because it's 9/11, some of this stuff don't add up to me, man. And, from a person that studies the occult, and I know that you do, I just want to pick your brain about it, okay? I'm not trying to get you to pick a side or say some grandiose thing. I'm just curious. And that's really all we're doing here. But we never did get the whole truth about that event, and it bothers me to this day. So anyways, we'll be right back, guys. I went over there.
Lighting the Void Radio.
This is Rev Dan Lopez from Spiritual Warrior Today Radio, and you're listening to KTLK, The Fringe FM.
Ahoy there, Gigi here.
And I'm Cortana, and we're here to take you on a journey through all things paranormal, metaphysical, ufology, and even psychedelic on our show,
Shift Happens, live every Friday night from 7 to 9 Pacific. That's 9 to 11 Central, right here on The Fringe FM.
And remember, don't feed the Archons, feed ducks instead.
Duck up.
Occult Arcana is a balanced and objective guide to those subjects considered a part of the nature of light and darkness. Addressed in this text is a compilation of material that will provide new perspectives and awaken latent abilities that we all possess. The content herein shall provide magical sustenance for adept and novice alike, and will help strengthen the cornerstone of mystic understanding and alchemical transmutation. If you are interested in this modern grimoire, you can find detailed information and ways to order by visiting www.thesecretteachings.info. Although esoteric and occult studies remain vast, they are rooted within a universal philosophy that is difficult, if not impossible by finite terms, to explain in words. Language places restriction and erects barriers to understandings. By this it is to be understood that there are some things man should consider far too sacred to profane with definition. For these concepts and the manner by which we live our lives, we shall take a note from the Greek philosopher Pythagoras. Quote, "Silence is better than unmeaning words." End quote. To get your autographed copy of Occult Arcana today, simply visit www.thesecretteachings.info or email The Secret Teachings at rdgable@yahoo.com.
Follow The Fringe FM on Facebook and Twitter at The Fringe FM.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. you'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now. The Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
If you have hard water, the lime scale not only leaves white spots, it clogs pipes and breaks down appliances, costing you hundreds of dollars in energy and wear. Eliminate lime scale and other water issues like brown staining and bad odors with HydroCare water products available from Wave Home Solutions. Wave's affordable water systems don't use salts or chemicals. You'll love the way your water tastes, smells, and looks. Satisfaction guaranteed. For more information, go to bestwater123.com. That's bestwater123.com.
Times are changing. The circus of politics, healthcare's low standards and high prices, and let's not forget food quality. What to do? Arm yourself with Life Change Tea at GetTheTea.com. In a world of chemical imbalance and poor air and water quality, it's time you make a move. Log on to GetTheTea.com and stock up on organic non-GMO supplements. Don't forget the tea. Cleansing your body never felt so good. And we have a brand new tea called Takedown Tea, which helps support healthy glucose. All natural body support so you can be at your best, naturally. All you have to do is log on to GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. We're not a fad that comes and goes. We are the real deal. Join us and armor up. GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. Changing America's health one tea bag at a time.
One 800-588-0335 is the call-in number. If you have any questions for Darren, you can call in 1-800-588-0335, or you can text the show at 501-777-5631. This is Lighting the Void, and I'm your host, Joe Roop. We're here with Darren Taylor, also known as Asbjorn Torvol. And before the break, we were talking about, or I was discussing, the 9/11 thing. Like, I still think that there's occultists. And when I say occultist, I'm not talking about you and I or regular people. I still kind of believe that there are things happening that we're not aware of. And this is very hard for me to explain, so let's just take 9/11, for example. We still don't know the truth about that. We still don't know. We do know that they knew all about these people and what they were going to do before it happened. At least that's the story we're getting. Lots of people died. I don't believe there were fake deaths or anything. People really died. But there's so many questions there that's unanswered. It happens on a certain day. If you study, the planets and occult, if you're an occultist, then you know the significance of the day, the month, and all that. Here's what bothers me, Darren. These bastards, they're still going to their meetings. They're still doing their...
Yep.
Worshiping the owl,
I'm still
whatever
here.
stuff, they're still, it's like it doesn't, they're just bumping along, and a lot of us want to feel like there's this group of men or group of people that are controlling everything for this big new world agenda that we're unaware of, that's actually backed up by aliens, etc., but we don't have a lot of facts, honestly, to back that up. But what I do know is I'm getting a feeling that there is something going on. And I like I told you during the break, man, I just don't want to be deceived in any kind of way, especially on a level that big. I don't like it. I'm not one of these fanatics that want to talk about it because it's cool and it gives me stimulation to talk about what I'm scared of. I really don't want to be deceived.
Yeah. And that's for the past, since we've had governments. Governments lie to us on a daily basis. They lie to us for the past however many centuries. Governments are known to continually lie to their people, because that's how you keep the people on your side, is by telling them the things they want to hear and keeping the things that they don't want to hear. And so, yeah. I mean, anyone who thinks that their governments aren't lying to them are crazy, because every government lies to their people. Let's just
say it didn't happen, but let's say it wasn't a conspiracy. Nothing happened. It was just a real terrorist attack that actually really happened to people. There was no significance in the date. There were no deceptions. It all happened the way the 9/11 report said it did. But if I was to go back in time before the event, and I was an occultist, and I understood the power of blood, and I understood the power of sacrifice, could I, technically speaking, regardless of good or evil, perform a mass sacrifice of individuals and get a mass result? Technically speaking, based on the fundamentals of magic, could I do that?
You could do that with eradicating an entire solar system. A theory is a theory. Whether or not it's something that could be done is a different story. We could sit here and theorize all day about it. Theoretically, you could go and kill 1 billion people. Theoretically, you could wipe out the entire planet too. But theory and practice are seldom the same. Did it happen? Maybe. There's a lot of speculation, but I think that we also have to consider pareidolia as well. Pareidolia, for those who don't know what that is seeing patterns and randomness. Is looking... Okay, the best way to describe pareidolia, at least in the most basic sense of the word, is if I draw 3 lines on a bit of paper and hold it up, you'll say, oh, look, it's a smiley face. But it's not a smiley face. It's literally a few lines on a piece of paper. The way that a shadow can be cast onto the wall might look like a face, but we know that it's just a candle. Pareidolia is your brain trying to make sense of things it doesn't understand, because the brain doesn't like uncertainty. We have to be able to explain everything. We don't like leaving things... what's the word? It's the same reason why as soon as someone sees...
I'm that way. I want the answers, damn it. I really do.
Our brains have to make sense of things we don't understand. Oh, what's that thing flying in the sky? Oh, I have no idea what that is, but it has to be aliens. It's... Our minds jump from, okay, we know that we don't know anything, but I'm going to jump to this conclusion because my mind needs to be able to say that it is something. And I think that's the same with a lot of this stuff, is that people want to find reason because they're angry. They're looking for something to explain to them. Something.
But, I mean, come on, man. There were some big things that don't make sense about it, though. I mean, really.
Oh, I'm not disputing that at all. I think that there's definitely, the truth isn't out there for sure. I guarantee. There's a lot about that story that isn't being told. No doubt about it. But we can sit and theorize about it all day. It makes no difference, because we're never going to be able to definitively tell what's the truth or not until the government releases it. And so I think that it's good to remember. I think that it's good to remind yourselves that your governments do lie to you. Don't be fooled into being tricked. But I think to dwell on it for too long drives you insane.
Yeah, it does. It does. And if anybody's been paying attention to magic in the community, there's this battle going on that I just don't even know why it's happening. But it does bother me when somebody comes out and does a public ritual, and I'm sorry, I don't know the guy personally. I'm sure he's a great guy. But it does bother me when someone comes out and does a public ritual to, call upon demons from the infernal realm to bind Trump and all his supporters. And it's just stupid to me, because I think Trump's a moron, right? I do. I think he's a moron. But the people that voted for him, that's their choice. Even if I think maybe they might be morons for doing it. It's still not up to me to call upon demons to bind them from doing anything. It's like, I don't believe in that. I think that's wrong, in my opinion. You understand where I'm coming from? Like, I think that's black magic, in my opinion.
I think one of my biggest quarrels with magic is the one question people don't answer is why, is how. People, what is a demon? Ask anyone who's into spirituality or magic what a demon is, and they won't give you an answer. What's an angel? What's a god? How do you define what those things are? Most people don't have a clue. They use the word demon because that's the best way to describe what they think something is. They don't actually understand what it is they're calling a demon. The demon Astaroth was once a goddess called Astarte. It's all mythology. Do demons exist? Well, it depends on your philosophy. It depends on your perspective. It's all dependent upon perspective. And so, I mean, I think a lot of the time people talk because they have no editing mechanism, because they have no gateway. People do stupid shit all the time. I try not to dwell on it. There's a simple philosophy that I think that more people, sometimes magicians too, is that the more you're focusing on what everyone else is doing, the less you're focusing on what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's not practical, right? I know, but I've went down that road too, and I'm just going to tell you real quick and stop you here. I went down that road to where I'm just going to do my thing, not really worry about what everybody else is doing, and not care. However, when I get in the real world, the things that these people do affect my life, and it gets old after a while.
Yeah, I'm not saying that, not to care about it. I mean, the whole reason I do what I do is to try and give people an alternative. But the difference is that I choose not to get involved, especially in the debates with morals and stuff like that, because it doesn't go anywhere. Stupid crap. And politics, it's because that's what it is. It's politics. It's a popularity contest. People do shit because it's trendy. And
it really
a lot of people,
it does. And I hate to cut you off, but I want to say this before I forget about it. When I got into occultism, it was one of the coolest things that actually did change my life. And to see the magicians, well-known magicians, battle each other out for what they call spiritual agendas, which I know deep down are political agendas, it really pisses me off.
I just let them play their games.
It's so stupid.
They're like 9-year-olds in a playground. They're not doing any harm. They're just playing with their toys. Someone's going to get a scraped knee and a bumped head, whereas the real magicians will be making some real differences. And this is it, is that be the change you want to see. Lead by example. It's much easier to show an alternative than to tell people why someone else is wrong. And that's something that I had to deal with. For a long time, I was like, look, here's 10 reasons why all this stuff you're doing is bullshit.
Right.
And instead, I started going, okay, here's an alternative, now compare it. Show people an alternative. Show people the difference something can make rather than telling them. And that's why I love the science so much, is because I can show people. I can demonstrate to them how much of a difference they can make. And I don't have to debate with people because it's my work, res ipsa loquitur. It speaks for itself.
Well, I will say that, I have a lot of magician friends. I'm associated with a lot of them. I mean, David Griffin's a good friend of mine, but he is 100% Trump. But he truly believes that people that bind kind of like I do, he believes it's wrong, and he believes in fighting for it. And if he really believes that, and I think he does, I'm not going to stop him. But I wish we could move past it. I really do. And you're right, maybe I shouldn't worry about the magical community as much as I do. But I know that there's a magical movement happening, and I want it to be done in the right way and not just in a chaotic way that humans are used to doing. Screw it up and then we can deal with it later, and then not learn from our mistakes and then just keep screwing it up, and we won't learn from our experiences because our books tell us different. So we don't listen to our experiences. We keep reading our books, and it's just never-ending bull crap cycle that never ends.
I mean, the community, hell, what I do is worry about the community. I'm trying to help a community out of a state of pollution. But, the difference is focusing on your attention on the right people. I don't focus attention on the few voices who are spouting nonsense, because the more attention you give them, the more it feeds them. I just choose not to feed it. I choose to help the people who are wanting an alternative rather than trying to convince people who've already made their mind up. And that's the thing, is that those people don't want the truth. They want to be validated, and that's not what I'm here to do.
Well, I want to get real answers, man. I do. I really, really do want to get real answers. I've said it a million times. The audience knows that we're not here to tell people the truth. You've heard that before. I'm going to tell you the truth whether you like it or not, because I'm the ultimate purveyor of truth. I don't think anybody knows the truth as much as to that level, right? So it bothers me.
Truth isn't dependent on whether you like it, whether you want it, or whether you believe it. Truth is what it is regardless. You have to look at truth objectively. And this whole personal truth thing that goes on in our community, personal truths is another word for your opinions. And your opinions, I'm sorry to say, don't mean shit when you're talking about truth. It can be my opinion that gravity doesn't exist, but if I jump off a cliff, gravity's going to do its thing. And so truth isn't dependent upon us. Whether we acknowledge it or otherwise, it makes a little difference. And so look for the objective truth. But in order to do that, and this is the hardest part, and I have to, everyone has to come to terms with it, including myself, is that if you want to find truth, that means admitting that you might be wrong and being willing to be wrong. If you're not willing to be proved wrong, anyone who truth by nature is belligerent. Truth, we resist it because we don't want to admit that we're wrong, because we like being right, and we're stubborn. Humans are stubborn, and so we will believe so strongly in something, not because we believe it, but because we fear being wrong, because we think that somehow that's humiliating. But I'll tell you what, being wrong has never felt more empowering when you go, oh, there's actually more for me to learn here. Sometimes I've gone through the occult, it feels like it's all repetition.
Yeah.
And then you have that breakthrough and you go, I got some more to learn now. And that's one of the greatest things about the science of this, is that there's so much to uncover. And being proved wrong becomes pleasurable. I don't like being right. I hate being right. I want to be wrong.
Yeah, it's boring. The one thing I hate is knowing the bullcrap before it happens, and then it happens. That's what pisses me off more than anything. Like, here comes the drama. I can see it happening. I can see this person, they're about to do this stupid dramatic thing, predict it, and it happens, and I'm like, I wish somebody proved me wrong. That type of wrong. And then there's also the factual stuff where you I want to know the real truth. I swear on everything. That's the only agenda I have.
When I put out Magic It's All in Your Head, first edition, I put it out saying that a lot of people say that magic is a science that we don't yet understand. I believe that it's scientific and we do understand it. And here's a formula. And I wanted people to prove me wrong. I advertised it as, I want you to read this book and somehow prove me wrong. And I don't mean prove me wrong by telling me I'm wrong, but give me an argument that's logical, that's scientific, that proves that I'm wrong. And to this day, nobody has done it. Not a single person has challenged. I've invited people on to debate me. I've given people free copies, hoping that they will find something in there. And funnily enough, I'm about to do another edition of that with more information that's in there from new stuff. So,
well, tell me about what happened to you, because now I'm curious about what happened to you. I mean, we got a few minutes before the break. We're moving into the last part of the show. I really want to get into. I mean, look, you're a bright guy. You know, you didn't have to get into magic. You could have played golf for the rest of your life and just studied psychology. but for some reason you're into the occult, and this is what I'm curious about. You know,
it's always been a part of me. I was born into a Christian family, same as everyone else's. Always was fascinated by religion and philosophy and spirituality and this thing called God. You know, I remember in primary school, which is essentially like elementary, I think, for you guys, I was asking myself those questions, like, whoa, dude, what if I'm God? You know, like, the kind of questions that, does the rest of the world stop when I'm not in the same room? Like, what happens to the world when I'm not observing it? Things like that. Crazy stuff. And there was a point where I was like, you know what, maybe I might be God. Why is it that I can only see through my eyes? And what happens to everyone else when I'm not there, you know? Just crazy philosophical stuff. And I got older and I just continued to study religion and philosophy, and I just had a fascination for mythology. And I got into my early teens. I had, you know, a bit of trouble at school, you know, got in with the wrong crowd and had some issues. And I just fell in love with the spiritual community, and I wanted to see what was out there. I knew inside that there was something that was outside of the mundane, something magical about the world. And funnily enough, that magic turned out to be science. You know, I believed in gods for a long time. I practiced these occult rituals and traditions. Got results, but I wanted to understand how, why it works. I'm not satisfied with, you know, just knowing, okay, if I do these few things, that means I get this result. No. I wanted to understand how it worked. I wanted to understand the mechanics of why it works. I wanted to understand the process. See, everyone wants to understand how to do magic. I didn't care about that. I wanted to understand how magic works.
Yeah, me too.
And I've spent almost a decade and a half of my life, almost my life's work, studying this and finding the science of this and piecing this together. I'm 24. I've been studying this since I was 7. And I had my breakthrough at about 19, where the psychology and the science started to come together. And now I've kind of come full circle.
What did you study as a 7-year-old?
Well, that was just basic religion, you know, the mainstream religions, Buddhism, Taoism, Islam, Christianity, a few other things here and there, a lot of Eastern religions.
You ask your parents a lot of questions about it?
Oh, no, they were never religious.
So you were reading books like the Bhagavad Gita and stuff when you were 7?
I have become death, the destroyer of worlds.
That's Oppenheimer.
Yes. No, that's the Bhagavad Gita. Oppenheimer was quoting the Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah, but I mean, what I'm saying is that's a pretty advanced for a 7-year-old. I think I was reading Cat in the Hat when I was 7, or trying to figure out.
First book I ever owned apart from the Bible was the Tao Te Ching.
I don't even know if I could tie my shoes when I was 7 years old.
I just always I was always fascinated by it. You know, my father used to read Norse mythology to me as a kid. It just always fascinated me, just magic. And, you know, I wanted it to be real. I convinced myself that it was for a long time. And I wanted it to be like a fantasy. I wanted it to be like the movies where I can shoot firebolts out of my hands and stuff. But as I grew older, I grew out of it. The benefit I have is that I grew up with magic. See, most people come into it when they're already an adult. I'm one of the exceptions to that. I was able to grow up with magic as a part of my life, and so now it always will be. You know, it was there when I transitioned from a boy to a man, from a kid to an adult. And so it's always been there. The passion's always been there. It's a part of me, really. And the science of it, it's just like understanding the anatomy of my body, really. You know, the same way that a mechanic understands how a car works. And that's really how I see magic. I don't think that everybody needs to understand the science of it. It's not necessary. I think that it helps, you know. You don't need to understand how the car works in order to drive it. You know, you don't need to be a mechanic to drive a car. But the mechanic probably knows a few things that makes his car work better. And so it's the same kind of with me, is that I'm the mechanic of magic. I'm looking to understand how it works, all the nuts and bolts and where everything fits in. But I don't think it's essential. You can still do magic without knowing that. I just think that in order to be efficient and to satisfy my curiosity and my fascination, understanding that is my gateway. That's where my passion is. And I genuinely think that, science goes out of their way to disprove magic. I'm trying to prove magic by saying, look, these scientific things that are happening in magic is how it works, and these things have a real benefit. But science looks to strip away the symbolism. They're like, oh, well, the gods aren't real and stuff, and all this stuff is just, whatever. And I'm like, well, have you considered that it's those subjective symbols that allow this to be beneficial? The same way that a body of a car doesn't actually contribute anything to how the actual motor functions. And so what I'm trying to do is to bridge the gap to say, well, look, here's the science of how magic works. The spiritual aspect is the subjective. That's how we engage with it. That's our way of life, so to speak, right? So every chef knows how to cook properly, but they choose different cuisines, right? Some people do French, some people do Indian, some people do European. Well, magic's the same. The science is the same for all, but we decide to do it differently. And that's really how I see magic. I'm not trying to... obviously I'm debunking some of the things that I think are fantasy, that I think that people are doing more damage to themselves. But, there's some horror stories out there. There was a guy here in 2006 who went to a psychic, and psychic said to him, he said, oh, your family's got this ancestral curse. I can clear this up for you, but you need to give me $5,000 in cash in an envelope so that I can burn it. And this guy is convinced that this psychic is right, and he can't raise the money. Psychic tells him that, if he isn't able to burn that money, either him or his son will die. And so the guy kills himself so that his son can live out of a curse that some guy pulled out of his ass to try and make $5,000. And the thing is that what people forget about spirituality is that there's a lot of people who want to exploit you. There's a lot of con artists out there. There's a lot of snakes in the grass. People who only do this to make money. People who don't care about you. People who will exploit your tragedies and traumas for their own personal gain. And so I think that if you understand the science and you understand the scams, you can prevent yourself and other people from being taken advantage of. And I think that, unfortunately, a lot of people in this industry get scammed out of their money. And it's a shame because they're good, hard-working people.
Yeah, they just want to get answers, They want to find out the truth.
A lot of people in this community are soft, and I don't mean that in a negative sense. I mean that in a very positive sense. They're nice people. They're soft people. They want to give people the benefit of the doubt. And a lot of the time that ends up being exploited by people who don't care, who want money, who want to feel powerful. And having worked with a lot of quote-unquote professionals in this industry, I can tell you that a lot of them are not what they seem. There are magicians out there who have written books with rituals that they've never practiced, that they've never done. People who are considered the best in the industry who are nothing more than armchair magicians. Right. There are some serious snakes out there.
I had a friend of mine ask me yesterday, and he asked it with the best of intentions, if I would create a course on magic, and I was like, oh, hell no. I'm not even close to... I just think it would be totally irresponsible for me to do that. I'm just a student, a beginner of it. And I get your point. I do. But we went over here. I do want to ask you about some of the things that happened to you. I'm fascinated, man. You might be actually a child genius. You might be one of those kids that was born super smart or something, because I got to tell you, man, when I was 7 years old, I was still trying to figure out how to use a Q-tip. I'm not playing. But we'll be right back with Darren Taylor, guys. Don't go anywhere. truth is out there.
There's something out here.
And so are we. KTOK Digital Broadcasting, The Fringe FM. Who were the real ancient Egyptians? What is it about ancient Egypt that captivates us all? The critically acclaimed series Magical Egypt is back with all new episodes. Let Chance Gardner and company take you on another adventure through Magical Egypt in the new series Magical Egypt 2. Magical Egypt 2 attempts a forensic reconstruction of the science of the ancients through a study of ancient aesthetics. Also, the best researchers and authors in the field like John Anthony West, Graham Hancock, Laird Scranton, Robert Bouval, Lon Maladuquette, Aaron Cheek, and more join together to explore the topics of the esoteric and the hidden messages of the ancient Egyptians. Just go to magicalegypt.com right now and put in the code word FRINGE and get 10% off any download or order, including the groundbreaking original Magical Egypt series, as well as the new episodes in Magical Egypt 2. Also, check out the great work and the companion series at magicalegypt.com. Click the banner on the Fringe FM or go to magicalegypt.com and use the code word FRINGE and get 10% off your order today while it lasts.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app. Free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
You're listening to Lighting the Void Radio.
How you doing today, guys? This is Garrett Lee.
And this is Randy Warner.
From the Healers and Hellraisers podcast.
A podcast about people.
You're going to hear stories from the enlightening to the frightening.
Told by those who lived it.
Listen right here on the Fringe FM.
Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, and on the Fringe Free-For-All, right here on the Fringe FM. Follow the Fringe FM on Facebook and Twitter at the Fringe FM. The Fringe FM loves hearing from you. Have a suggestion, comment, or question? We're all ears. Email talkback@thefringe.fm. People have been asking me, I've been getting messages about who this artist is that does these songs, these intro songs. And I'll say it again, Bundy, Bundy. I guess some people are having trouble finding the guy. But Bundy is a phenomenon. I don't know his identity. I think Eric knows his identity. And he just sits in his room somewhere in an undisclosed place and just shreds the guitar and blows the glass out. He's kind of like a superhero for guitarists. But if you want to, I guess if you want information about Bundy, I've gotten so many messages about this music. If you want the guy's information, just send me an email. Listen to that. Anyways, just send me an email. I'll relay it to Eric, and we'll try to get it for you. I don't even know if the guy sells his music. I think he does. It might be CD Baby. It might be somewhere else, but I'll get you that info. Eric, people want to know how to get this guy's music. Okay, I'm done. All right, so we're here with Darren Taylor, Asbjorn. Hold on a second. We had a dead air issue. Tell me about your book again. I'm sorry, brother.
No worries. First book, almost 2 years ago now, Magic, It's All in Your Head. It was the first proper text that I'd written, and I was pleasantly surprised by the response it got. A lot of people loved it. And I did another few books here and there, some with Become a Living God, a couple of other contributions here and there. And now I'm going back to Magic is on Your Head, redoing it and putting in a ton more info. So that's the one that's coming up the end of this year. And this time actually co-authoring with my business partner and my best friend, John Cody, who is very much in the backlight of the project, but he's the backbone behind it all. He's such a intelligent and just a great magician all around. His philosophy is sound, and it's great to be working with him on this project.
So you got what is the URL for your courses, like the courses that you sell on Gumroad?
On Gumroad, it's just gumroad.com/presoteric. Just esoteric, but with a PR at the front of it. Presoteric.
All right.
We've got a few things up there at the moment. We just released an e-course, an audio course, called Mind and Matter, A Beginner's Guide to Real Magic. So it goes over the science of ritual. So what happens, what is magic, and how does ritual work? It goes over those two things very, very simply. One of the biggest things I've found, the hardest thing I found with my job, is that in order for me to explain the science of magic, I often have to talk about 5 other things. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I do.
It's like a tapestry. It's like, look, here's the thing I'm going to talk about, but I need to preface it with this 5 other things first. That's where the hardest parts of this comes from, because the science isn't as simple as just, well, here's a principle. There you go. You have to tie it in with everything. And so often explaining just one concept to someone can take an hour. And so I've had a few people who've done consultations with me where they've booked 3 sessions in a row just so that we can cover one huge topic, because the science just goes into so much detail. And it's a lot of information to take in to begin with, too. You know, what I'm trying to do is teach people, or rather pass on the information in small bite-sized chunks. That's taken me, 14 years, more than 14 years, 15 years to put together myself. And so I'm putting my life's work trying to condense that into a way that I can give to people. And it's not easy, because there's a lot of trial and error. And so those courses are aimed at trying to explain certain aspects so that it's not giving you too much at once. So it just explains what magic is, how ritual works, and then a couple of other e-courses, we'll go into some of the other stuff. So things like hypnosis, things like programming, etc. Cover smaller areas that are easier to digest, like sigils, for example. Do an entire audio course on what sigils are, because there's so much science that's in there that if I was to go from start to finish the science of magic, I would take a solid 10 hours. 10 hours.
I got to address this. I got Joseph K. is one of my listeners that he can't get over the fact that you're young. He's like, this guy's 24 and he knows everything. He just can't get over it. He's an occultist too, though, I think. I'm pretty sure. He's a pretty wise cat. But look, here's the thing. If you were really reading those kind of books, I'm going to take your word for it, since you were 7, then that kind of would explain why you are where you are with this. And, it doesn't take, I've never looked at age as a sign of, I do look at it as a sign of wisdom, but not a sign of knowing. Like, you seem to be a super analytical person where you could pick something apart very well, put it back together, and explain it. So what I'm going to do to validate this guy's work is I'm going to take one of his courses, and I'll let you know if it's legit or not. If you just trust me. I'm 36. I'm still pretty young, but I think, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, people think just because you're 50, when you're 50, then you know everything, or you can at least say you got a little wisdom, but you can't when you're 24.
Age casts a very large shadow on a lot of people. Yeah, I'm 24. I've also been married, been divorced. I've got a daughter who's 5 years old. I've got my own apartment. I pay my own rent. I pay my own taxes. I own my own business. I've authored 3 books and contributed to 7 others. How many people at 24 can say they've done that? Age is a number. A lot of people, at least in the culture we have now, they spend 10 years of their life drinking, partying with their friends. I didn't do any of that. In my spare time, I sat reading books and writing blog posts about magic. It's all about where you invest your time. I invested mine into studying psychology and magic, whereas most people invested it into partying and drinking and all this other stuff. And so, am I wise? No. I just have an understanding of something that I've put work and research into. It's things that anyone else can do. It's nothing special. There's nothing new under the sun when regarding this information. Anyone who wants to sit down and study for a while can find the same information I have. I haven't made any of it up. It's just research. And so all I'm doing is reiterating. All I'm doing is reiterating to you guys the things that I've researched, tested, got results from, experimented with. I'm not telling you it's right or wrong. I'm telling you, go and test it for yourself and find out.
Well, I'm definitely going to, man. I'm curious. I mean, look, you got some cool courses here. A beginner's guide to real magic. That looks good. Sigil technology. I'm super interested in that one. Now, that one's your most priciest course, so you put a lot of work into that one, didn't you? I should say, actually, just for those of you if you do decide to look at that, bear in mind this is a pre-order. So when you click on it, it'll say at the top, official release date is November. So it's not actually released yet. Ah, okay. It's a course that's still being finished up and edited. So that comes out in November. But yeah, it's a course that it's mainly just because it's visual. Audio courses are easy enough to record and then edit. Video courses, there's a lot more editing that goes into it. And so it's, instead of my voice, I've got to video my hands and drawing the sigils and showing the methods and whatnot. And it's just more time consuming, really. So. Well, look, if Frederick Xavier trusts you, man, I think that's good enough. And anybody that's really, seriously, anybody that's really studied any people in the magical community, there's certain people that know their stuff, and he's one of them. That's my belief on that. And if, he thinks you're a great mind, and I'm going to think that with him. I just tend to trust him because that guy changed my life, just to be honest with you. He changed my life.
Mine too. A lot of his information was the cause of a lot of my breakthroughs,
Is Uncle Birch Frederick Xavier?
No, he's not.
They sound kind of close, man.
No, they don't.
It sounds like Frederick Xavier's got a nose pin on his nose. He's telling everybody he's got surgery, but it sounds like he put a clothespin on his nose to hide that he's Uncle Birch.
No, they're not the same person.
Okay.
But I'm not going to say who he is.
You know who he is.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that's not fair.
His secret is safe with me. But what I can say, and this is something that I want to say because this is something I'm very aware of in this community, is don't judge anyone based on what anyone else thinks. Frederick Xavier might trust me, but that doesn't mean that he stands by everything that I've said. Me and him have disagreements. There's things that he views that I view slightly different. I think that.
Well, I'm just talking about the age thing, man. Because it is
professionally we're compatible, but
it is hard to accept. Just to be honest with you, it's hard to accept because you're a young guy. A lot about magic, and you're selling courses. So if I'm an occultist and I'm 60 and I'm listening to this, I can understand where Joseph K is coming from. So I'm just trying to vouch for you a little bit. That's all I'm doing here.
Well, here's a simple way: is judge me on the merit of what I say, and that's it. Anything else is insignificant, is irrelevant. You can be 50 and speak utter bullshit.
That's true. My pop does
and you
that
can
all the
be
time.
60 and spout wisdom. Judge me based on what I say. Testify, question what I say. And if it's right, then it's right. If it's wrong, then it's wrong. Everything else is window dressing,
All right,
I don't want people to judge me for anything other than my information, because I'm not doing this to be popular. I'm not doing it to cast a shadow. I want people to look at the info, not the person who's saying it.
Yeah,
it's not about me. It's about the info.
Being labeled, your age, you're an American, you're white, you're a Republican, you're a Baptist, that stuff is, I'm ready for all that to go. I'm only interested in your ideas, what you have to offer, your information. I'm the same way. I really am. But I did say that before we took the break that I wanted to get into your story. So did you, before we start this thing, did you get into black magic at all? What we would consider normal black magic without stipulating what's black and white, what other people would call black magic.
Black magic. What other people call black magic. So baneful magic. I studied it, sure. I mean, it's not all about execution for me. It's about, okay, this thing exists. I want to know what it's about. See, most people judge something before they've ever looked into what it is. They say, oh, well, black magic is all baneful magic and it's all this, but they never actually study it to know whether or not what they're saying is true. And so it's blissful ignorance a lot of the time. If I'm going to make a statement about something, I'm going to make sure I know what I'm talking about first.
Well, I don't do that. I talk out my ass sometimes so much I can't believe I say stuff. But I really do, man. But it's just conversation.
Don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with saying, I think, is hypothesizing what you think. But to say this, I think that too many people make assumptions, which with a little bit of research could be, well, not an assumption.
I'll say this. For those of you that got mad about what I said about Trump, I just want you to know that we're here to make late night radio great again. Okay? This is the best show in ever. We've got the best listeners, since, I don't know, ever. We've gained more listeners than any other station, period. And if you don't get what I just said, then you'll never understand me. But so when you started out in making late night radio great again, man, I got to get some hats. When you started this, what was the first thing you did in magic? What was the first thing you tried out? Said, okay, I'm going to try out this magical process. What was the first thing you tried?
The first thing I did, magically speaking?
Yes.
Oh, I have no idea. It was that long ago. Honestly, I have no idea. It depends on what you consider like ritual magic.
Yeah, let's just start with rituals. Do you remember the first ritual you ever did?
Yeah, it was probably the lesser banishing ritual, the pentagram. It's probably the first ritual I ever did.
And that's usually the one that a lot of people start doing. And
you got to start somewhere.
Yeah, and I can tell you, it's a lot like you start. At least I did.
Actually,
why the hell am I doing this? What is this doing?
I'm lying to you. Actually, it wasn't lesser banishing ritual. It was the Kabbalistic cross.
Ah, okay.
That was the first one I ever did, and I followed the more traditional ceremonial magic system with that Kabbalistic cross, middle pillar, lesser banishing ritual, and I did them in that order. And that was the first 3 ceremonial rituals that I did. Yeah.
And did it do anything? Because I got to tell you, when I started doing that, because it's the exact same thing I started doing, the Kabbalistic cross, lesser banishing ritual, the pentagram, the middle pillar, I got nothing, man. At least I think I felt like it wasn't doing anything at first. I was expecting this profound thing to happen to me, and then it didn't.
First time I did a lesser banishing ritual was outside on uneven ground. Had very little idea of what I was doing, and ended up coming out of it being like, well, shit, I feel like an idiot.
Exactly. What was that?
Stupid. And to this day, I still get those experiences that I go into a ritual and I'm like, well, that was kind of stupid. What was that all about? And so my rituals nowadays are a lot more simpler. I don't really do that much ceremony anymore because I don't feel it's necessary. I've made my intentional magic very mundane because it's just much easier to deal with. I still do ceremonial rituals on occasion. I still do them every now and again, but my everyday magic is, most people wouldn't even know it was magic. It would just feel like part of ordinary life. You know, when I do money magic, I don't throw on a robe and light a green candle. I put on a suit and I go outside and I make myself feel like I'm $1 million. That's a ritual. You know, most of my rituals are fairly simple in that regard. You know, they're very mundane.
But the thing like the lesser banishing ritual, the pentagram, the Kabbalistic cross, in these books, they want you to do it over and over and over again, which is in essence a ritual. They want to implant this thing in your subconscious, which is like the essence, is the reason why you do it over and over again. And right? I mean, am I wrong there?
Similar. I mean, it's the same principle as the whole sandwich thing we went over earlier, is that the reason they want you to do it over and over again is so you get your conscious mind out of the way, is that it becomes muscle memory. You know, the first time you learn to drive a car, you got to remember the steering wheel and the gears and all this stuff, unless you're an automatic car. You've got to remember everything. And then one day you get in the car and snap, you just drive. You don't even think about it. Well, ritual's the same way. You're trying to get your conscious mind out of the way so you can manipulate your environment. So the best way to do that is to make it muscle memory, because then your conscious mind doesn't get in the way at all. You just do it.
So when naturally. You did the Odin ritual that you said changed your life, what kind of things started happening to you?
Small things to begin with, really. It was what I call a domino effect. But bear in mind, I kept feeding the same ritual. I attribute it to that ritual, but obviously there's a lot of other variables in there too. But my life completely changed. My marriage died. I ended up homeless, had no money, I was done, essentially. I had not a penny to my name. I had no way out. And I went from that to moving country, saving my business, getting my own place, and kicked it off. It was great.
So it was like being reborn, maybe.
Death and somewhat, rebirth. And I think that death and rebirth is overrated. I would say it's an evolution. I wouldn't necessarily say it's a death and rebirth. It's just progress, development, It was...
I'm still trying to figure out, though, if my divorce was progress, though. So that's why I'm trying to understand this. That contract never went away, even though it's like, oh, thank God I'm rid of her. Well, I'm still having to pay her money every month. So this contract kind of stayed, Now, Frater Xavier talks about that, contracts and consent. To me, it's marriage is an evil thing. People may laugh at me about that, but the way we do it now, I think it's incredibly evil.
I agree with you. It's for that same reason why I don't really want to do it again.
God,
once was enough.
I'm going to lose so many listeners saying that, for all my married people that are listening. But it's like, look, you're free. You have the choice to love this person. Everything's so great. And as soon as you put your name on that legal paper that says, I'm bound to this person no matter what, and it's funny, when they do the marriage ritual, it's not just signing your name. It's this, repeat after me. It's like you look at it as a happy moment, but repeat after me, say it with your mouth. I'm going to be here no matter what happens. It's like, where'd the love go? I'm
all for the ceremony. I think the ceremony is beautiful, but take the paper out of it. I don't think you need to get the government involved. Take the government aspect out, take the paper out of it, and just have a ceremony or a hand fasting, and hey, beautiful. Totally on board with that.
Well, we've only got just a little bit of time left, a few minutes, so you can tell that I'm trying to find something, because the way you talk about this on YouTube is that it profoundly changed your life, and it doesn't seem like, it just seems like everything that's happened to you isn't really magical at all. It's just normal life stuff.
Well, it is now, yeah, for sure. But it's also I've exhausted, really, it's something that in the moment of experiencing was crazy, but now, when you look back and things are different when you look back. It's, it was a very profound experience. It was definitely an evolution. It was a development process for me. But what that led me to was so much more important. That was my next breakthroughs, was getting back down to the science, the roots, and leaving away the things I didn't need behind. And, that was part of it. There's a lot of development that happened from then and there just in my own personal practice. Things became more mundane and more centered and more simpler. See, there's a lot of complex rituals out there. And, I don't want to say too much because obviously I know this is somewhat of a very private thing. So I'm going to leave the details out a little bit. But a lot of people do a lot of fancy rituals. A lot of ceremonial rituals with a lot of cool stuff in there. Now, Frederick Xavier's included in that. He does the ceremonial rituals in his temple and stuff. But when you look at the magic that he does, and I want to say somewhat practically, the practical stuff, not the routine temple magic. And I don't mean any offense by that, just, But his practical magic is all very simple. And that's why it works. That's why it works so great. There's times when him and I first started talking that I'd ask for advice. I'd be like, look, I'm having some issues. And all I needed was for him to say, look, you're overcomplicating it. Bring it back down to base. Because it's easy for us to overcomplicate our own thoughts. We think, oh my God, this thing's happening in my life and I need to do all this to fix it. And then what we need to do is take a back seat, chill out, and then deal with it calmly and simply. We want our lives to be overly complicated. And we make them overly complicated. But the solution's always simple. You know the old saying, keep it simple, stupid?
Yeah.
It applies to magic as well. The ceremony has its place, for sure. But it's not essential.
But the way you talk about it, though, it's like we really don't even, everything is magical. Yeah, I get it. But it's like, well, we don't really even need it. We could just do all the stuff without it.
Well, we don't need it. We're doing it regardless. But, it's... Magic's exciting because of the mythology, because of the exciting aspects of it. But overall, what seems exciting usually isn't. And this is the thing, I've been doing this for long enough that the novelty's worn off on some of it. So magic is just a part of everyday life for me. It's the same as me getting up and having my coffee in the morning. It's not really something that we dwell too much on, but just because magic is mundane doesn't mean it can't be fun or exciting.
Well, I don't know. I think maybe so are magicians out there making mundane things more than they really are? Like, I'm watching these YouTube videos and there's like, I'm gonna invoke Lucifer, and then they start doing this chant and then they put these effects on their video and they make sure that they got their eyes painted black, and I'm not playing. I'm watching this stuff. Well, like, is he okay? Where's the devil? Is he invoking Lucifer? And so you're telling me that at the base of what this guy's doing, it's really nothing crazy going on. It's just like he's just invoking some aspect to mess with his mind or something? Is that what you're saying?
It's what I call magical method acting. You're stepping into an idea to immerse you in getting the result. I don't really see the point in summoning an entity unless you have a specific purpose in mind, because then it defeats the point. What are you going to do? Sit and talk to yourself? It's like talking to your imaginary friend. And don't get me wrong, sometimes talking to yourself is helpful. I'm one of these people that can sit and talks to myself when I'm walking down the street. Not that I want to admit that. But, it's... People do magic because it's cool. Ask them why they're doing it. What's the purpose? What's the purpose of this ritual? They can't tell you. They're doing it because it's cool, because it's a habit. They don't have a clear, concise understanding of why they are doing it or why they want to do it. It's the same reason, ask people what got them into magic, and some people struggle to give you an answer because they don't know. They just decided to do it. They don't really know why they stuck around or what they're doing it for. And so all the all the fantastic aspects, all the mythology and the cool rituals with the fire pits and stuff, they have their place. They're definitely a real part of magic that's useful. I'm not saying that they're useless or that we shouldn't use them. They definitely, in fact, they're necessary in a lot of ways. But what I'm saying is that those things aren't always what they seem. I've never had any entity materialize out of thin air into a physical thing. It's never happened. And I would challenge anyone who said that they've seen it. Yeah, they might have seen things in the smoke, which you could write off as being pareidolia. Yeah, they've experienced things that you could say was idiomotor responses or placebo. You know, no one can say 100% that they've manifested a real demon into physical form 100% and can prove that. It's mostly hearsay. And people don't want to admit that. And the reason they don't want to admit it is because they already understand that their minds are flawed. I wanted to believe for a long time that I could make a god appear before me, and never once has it happened. But ever since I looked at what these gods are, they're archetypes, they're ideas, they represent parts of us, and what we're doing in a ritual is we're externalizing them so that we can interact with them. Because it's difficult for us to interact with things. It's like, do you ever, you're sitting with a question in your head trying to answer it, and it's not until you ask someone that you answer it yourself.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
But I've also asked a question and walked into the living room and turned on the TV and got the answer, the exact answer of the question.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
things like that happen.
That stuff is weird, man.
Yeah, it's definitely weird.
But it's not explainable scientifically, so there's no point in trying to figure it out.
Well, it's synchronicity. It's you're looking for something, and if you're looking for something, you'll find it. It's something that's there. But when it comes to demons and gods and angels, we're externalizing these ideas in order to interact with them. That's not a bad thing. It's the same principle that we do with ritual components. We're using external stimuli. It's easier for us to relate to an external figure than it is to something we think is in our head.
So what about astrology, right? They say that these are just correspondences. Mercury corresponds to this. The moon corresponds to your emotions, your subconscious, and it's just a symbol of that. Or does it really affect those types of energies? I think it really does. I mean,
you've got to look at it in two ways. The symbolism, yeah, definitely, for sure. I think that is single-handedly the most important aspect of it. The correspondences are symbolically associated. But you also have to admit that there are physical bodies of energy that exist around astrology. People forget that your thoughts are physical things. Your thoughts are made up of real energy with a nucleus. Your thoughts are just as real. Your imagination is a real physical body of energy. And so technically so are gods, but it has to be filtered through the mind. The mind is how we interact with all of it. The same way that your five senses are what interprets this three-dimensional reality. Well, the mind is like your TV.
Right. I've actually had Frater, I think his name's Ashin Shasan. I always say his name wrong on here. And he did say that he evoked angels and did see them and that they were very powerful. And, he didn't seem like the kind of guy that would just put me on. So maybe, he was one of those magicians that said, look, I really did see these things. He wrote a couple of books too. So here, and this is what I'm finding out about magic. I'm not getting a definitive answer. And I guess you're going to say, well, that's okay because nobody knows. But I'm not getting any defined answers from magicians. It's one magician will tell me one thing and another one will tell me something else. It's
I'm the only person who will give you a definitive answer.
Really?
I'm the only person who's given a definitive answer of what magic is and how it works. You ask some of the best magicians out there, how does magic work? And they can't answer.
That's right. They never do answer it.
Right. I've answered it with science. And it's things that you can go and test yourself and figure out. The thing with, I'll put a challenge up here, the same challenge I've given everyone else. If someone go into a ritual, and if you can make any spiritual entity, a demon, an angel, a god, appear physically manifested, go on a Facebook live stream or record it, or take a photo, take a selfie with it, and send it to me. And if you can prove to me that it's 100% real, I'll give you every single penny in my bank account.
Yeah.
I guarantee you no one's going to do it.
That'd be worth seeing, though, wouldn't it? I would give them my money to see that, too.
And you know what they're going to say? They're going to say, oh, well, it would be disrespectful for me to take a selfie with a demon. Oh, well, I guess that, it's the same reason why people use the term metaphysics. They use the term because it absolves them from having to deal with science. Oh, well, if I was to take out my phone and record the demon, it would disappear. Ah, yeah, it would, because then you'd have proof it existed.
I
think that
I'm almost certain, though, he did say that I can't tell you definitively if you would have walked into the room, if you would have saw it, but I know I did. Like, so he was talking about the conscious, maybe it was just his mind doing it, which is, I guess that could be explained.
I mean, here's the thing, is that even if it was his mind, it doesn't devalue the experience. If you have experiences with any god, regardless of whether it's inside your head or outside, it's still valuable experience. I've had experiences with Odin that I completely recognize are all in my head, and they have literally changed my life into what I consider a paradise. And if that's all in my head, then great. I can make this stuff happen. Just because it's in your head doesn't mean that it's less valuable. It just means that it's if anything, it's closer to you. Why do spiritual people have this thing where they're okay with saying that the universe exists within you, but they're not okay with saying that the gods do?
Right.
There's a question for you.
Well, I mean, if I wanted to play this clip of your intro here, if you don't mind, and this is why I had a lot of questions about it, right? Because I don't know anything about Odin or anything like that, but I mean, this is. I'm just going to play this, guys. Hold on just a second.
I was depressed, in a dead marriage with no real purpose for my life. Wise one, wanderer, ruler of Asgard, chieftain, the Asir. I was in need of change, and a lot of it. Every day was the same. I would wake up, and I would look at the world around me, and it would just feel hollow and empty. And I thought to myself, it doesn't have to be this way. I want to share with you my experience working very intimately with the Allfather, the King of the Aesir, Lord of Valhalla. I ask for nothing but your guidance, your favor, So I said, no, I will make a change. I will use the skills that I have been taught. I will call upon Odin, and I will make this change a reality. And how the Eye of Odin ritual can change your entire life, hurl it into chaos, but emerge out in you. I got the change. Although I didn't quite expect it to manifest the way that it did. I lost everything. My marriage, my home, all of my money. It felt like I'd hit rock bottom. But actually, it was the blessing that I'd been hoping for. These offerings be taken well. Because it was in losing all of that I was able to gain everything that I'd ever wanted. I'm warning you, this ritual may change your life, but sometimes that is exactly what we need. Hail Odin. Hail the god of Asbjorn. This ritual is tough and belligerent, but it manifested the paradise that I had dreamed of. And it can help you too.
Now, obviously, that's a video for you to pitch. It's just a pitch video, right, for your course. But when I saw that, I was like, man, this guy's life really changed. He called down Odin or whatever, and all these amazing changes happened. Plus, you got this really cool-looking sigil on the video. And I'm thinking, it's kind of scary, right? Like, I don't know if I want to do this. So what I'm getting from this video is that if you do the ritual, your life may go into chaos, but it's a change that's going to happen for the better. But when I talk to you now, it's almost like, well, I didn't really need to do all that. That's kind of what I'm getting from. I'm trying to figure this out.
But that's the same with all magic, though. You don't need to do all of that, but you can do that if you like. Magic is subjective. It's the same. You don't have to go and do all the money candles. You can go and put on a suit and get the same result. That ritual specifically was for a Norse pathworking. When I was pathworking the Norse system, which I have since left, essentially. I've moved on to work on other things. But the ritual itself, if taken by a practitioner of Viking magic, can work any way to get them those results if they want it. Those rituals can be tailored to get the results that the person wishes to receive. I had a few people who did that ritual and got the results and were very, very happy with it. And so, it's subjective.
Mm-hmm.
But the ritual itself, it changed my life. Changed my life hugely. Put me into a really bad situation and then to a really good one. And I reaped the benefits for it. I dedicated 2 years of my life to pathworking that system, not to mention the years before it, just studying it, to the point that my body's covered in Norse ink from that pathworking. It was a great experience. It changed my life in many ways. And so now what's the next thing that's going to change my life? It's on to the next thing, onto the next project.
So you accredit to that. So that probably wouldn't have happened. Well, we don't know, but you're thinking all of that tailspin that happened, and now you got a better life. In your eyes, it's a much better life than you had. Wouldn't have happened if you wouldn't have done that ritual.
Well, that's the same for anything, isn't it?
Yeah, right.
If my mother didn't decide to sleep with my dad that one night, I wouldn't exist. Every decision we make contributes to the next thing that we experience. So, yeah. If I didn't go through that, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be in this situation. I wouldn't have stumbled across the certain things that I have. But small action can...
I understand what you're saying. It sounds very practical. But what I'm trying to say is why didn't you just say, you know what? I don't like being here. This divorce sucks. I don't like my financial situation. I'm going to change that. And just change it.
Because life's never that simple. I was in a country that I was completely new to. And I didn't want my marriage to fail. I tried to fix it. I'm not the kind of dude that just walks away.
Right.
But sometimes you just got to count your losses. And there was a lot more to it than just two people being unhappy. There was mental illness involved with there too. And so it came a point that you gotta make a decision. But I'm a firm believer that just because something's broken doesn't mean you can't fix it. And so you persevere and you try. And then if things don't get better, then you decide, okay, well, maybe it's time to move on. And so, yeah, I could have definitely done it in a very mundane way. But at different times in our lives, we go through different stages. And at the time when I was doing my pathworking, it was the easiest way for me to get the results based on what I was currently relating with. the external stimuli in the traditions are very useful. That's not in denial. But it's simply acknowledging that they're subjective. So just because something's subjective doesn't mean it isn't useful. Or that I don't encourage it. In fact, I encourage the use of the subjective. That's what makes magic exciting.
Well, you know what I would do if I was you? This would be my next thing. This is because you seem like you're a much more advanced occultist than I'll ever be at this point. But what I would do if I was you, if it were me, I'd try to figure out how to talk to an alien like Grant Morrison and Aleister Crowley did. If you can talk to an alien, that would be great. Have you talked to an alien? Don't tell me you have.
Does my ex-wife count?
Yeah. If she's an alien, she could be a half reptilian or something. You don't know.
I mean, maybe I have. If I have, I don't know that I have. It's not something that I have any intention to do. I'm just looking to enjoy the next steps of a life with a bit more peace and quiet than it was last year. So, last year was a busy year. It was a hectic year. So the next part of my life is just chilling it, taking it easy, and living the easy life for a bit before I jump into some more crazy excitement.
So you're more of a, look, why even do this stuff if it isn't going to help you? And I'm not trying to put you in a category, but for you, it's like, if I'm going to do this stuff, it's going to help me in a practical way. I mean, spiritually, awareness, whatever.
I mean, for the majority, from the amount of time that I've invested into magic, what have I gotten back from it apart from cool experiences? It's a hobby. The reason I've stuck around is because I enjoy studying it. I enjoy studying the science. The practicality of it is minuscule to me. I'm just fascinated by mythology. I practice magic to get results. And when it comes to practice, unless I'm doing it just to experience something new, and I'm a firm believer is not everything needs to have a reason. Sometimes you just want to do shit just to see what happens, just for the experience,
Yeah, I get that.
There's two modes here. I think that if you're going to seriously invest in magic, have a purpose. Understand why you're doing it. But sometimes that reason is just because you want to experience something new. That's a valid reason. I just want to experience shit. I want to have a full life. I want to experience as much cool shit as possible. I moved to America on a whim, almost. I've done stand-up comedy on stage. I've done live music on stage. I've climbed mountains. I've done crazy, stupid shit. But you know what? I didn't regret any of it. Because it's those experiences which make your life fun. And life's too short to always have a reason. Sometimes, here's my piece of advice. Don't have a bucket list. Have a fuck it list.
Yeah. Oh, well, what I need is a censor button. That's what I need. But no. Here, that's probably just the Scottish in you. I don't know, but look,
it is a little bit. You know, Paul, he's worse.
Oh yeah. Paul knows why I don't put him on the radio. He can't hold back. But I love Paul to death, And look, I understand where you're coming from. It's just I'm trying to get answers here. Magic is cool to me, and it's cool to a lot of people. And this is what that video that I played is what we're presented. And in every aspect of magic, and there's a marketing thing to it for sure. But I will say that out of all the people that I've talked to about magic, I do appreciate your honesty about it, about bringing it down to a level of usefulness and understanding that it isn't as Harry Potterish as a lot of people would like to see. But I do for one believe that maybe either Crowley or Grant Morrison talked to an alien, and if they did, I want to be able to do that. I want to, man. And that's what he said. Like, look, I used magic to talk to an alien. I went to Kathmandu to talk to an alien, and that's what I did.
Yeah.
But if I get caught up in this what's real thing, then it loses it for me. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I'm working on that. Maybe I should work on that.
It's the It's a problem I run into as well. When I first started studying the science of this, I'm like, well, if this is all in my head, what's the point? But then you understand that just because it's in your head, that makes it more valuable. You understand to appreciate. It doesn't devalue the experience. And it's something that can take a while for people to come to terms with. So just because something's in your head doesn't make it any less real, doesn't make it any less worth it, all you have is a different understanding of it. It doesn't change the results or the experiences you had with it. And so, and this is why what I say is that you don't have to understand it. You can do it without understanding it. You don't have to be a mechanic to drive a car. You don't have to understand the science of magic to be able to perform magic. And so, it's the mythology and aspects of it are great. I love the mythology. I love the symbolism and it's just the culture and the traditions. But my passion is in that science. Is in the why it works, and how it works. And I'm very much a scientist in that sense. There's times that I don't even consider myself a magician. I consider myself a scientist. Because I do more science in magic than I do active ritual magic.
Well, you know what? I appreciate you coming on the show, talking to us about this. Yeah, it was a real pleasure. 24, 50, I don't care what your age is. It was a real pleasure talking to you about it. And I look forward to seeing what you're going to do in the future, man. Likewise.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. Oh, by the way, there is if someone says that they can prove to you about a spirit that they want to, there's a person in the chat saying they can prove to you that that there's a spirit. How do people contact you? Just out about that.
Prove to me with indisputable evidence, and that means without Photoshop.
Without Photoshop, look them up. How do they find you on the web? I forgot to say that. Sorry.
You can find me at facebook.com/presotericism. Okay, so esotericism, but with a PR.
Yeah.
Or just search Darren Taylor, Asbjorn Torvol.
All right, I'll put all the links there in the show notes. No big deal. Thanks again, man. It's been really cool having you on.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right, guys, we got to get out of here. Don't forget, tomorrow night, Dr. Richard Spence, we're going to talk about Aleister Crowley, 666, Secret Agent. But I do have to tell you that this show was produced by the Fringe FM and cannot be rebroadcasted or syndicated without written permission. Intro music was by Chronox. Other music by Bundy, Kevin MacLeod, and Space Station. See you guys tomorrow night. Good night.